Unajua sisi ni akina nani? Tunaomba muondoke.
I just came to run some errands for Nick.
Then you just tell that family to adopt you.
You are sick.
Not having breakfast with us? Millicent. Tiffany is mourning.
She must be broken.
He's in a better place. It's okay.
None of his children were there during his last days. None of us, Tiff.
Once Dad is 6 feet under, we're all alone.
Who else is here?
Siku mingi.
How have you been?
Jazz.
But that's why we have each other.
And now there are just 2 teams left. The cup holders take on Eintracht Frankfurt.
What's the header? Danny Olmo.
The Red Bulls.
Andika!
Against the Eagles. It's all or nothing time.
It's Soboslai again.
Kick-off on June 3rd.
Kamada!
There can only be one winner.
Kolomwani. What a night for RB Leipzig.
Leipzig-Frankfurt, the DFB Cup final.
Good morning. Good to have you again on the show. This is Good Morning Kenya on this 24th day of May 2023. So the battle of the heart and soul of Jubilee still continues after what is called the confusion between the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties and the Parties Tribunal. One reinstating members and one expelling the members. So it's all over on the front page of the local dailies here on the Standard. Endgame of Uhuru Parties Tribunal, brutal battle. Daily Nation, who owns Jubilee? The Star, Uhuru on the verge of losing Jubilee Party. It's about Jubilee, Jubilee, Jubilee. All right. As that is happening, so the bipartisan talks collapsed yesterday for the next 7 days after the Azimio team members said that they have got some reservations as to what Kenya Kwanza is trying to put there. Let me just give you some of the proposals and the concerns rather by the Azimio team that is led by the, and let me put it, which was tweeted by Edwin Sifuna at the issue they have is that lowering of the cost of UNGA, preservation of the election servers, suspension of IEBC reconstitution, and lastly, for them to leave Jubilee alone. So, according to Murugaru, who is the co-chair of the bipartisan talks, he said that they'll give the Azimio time to have their submissions, and thereafter they will have their responses later on. On the front page of this Daily Nation, Doreen, Ram, and Regina, pastor puts off wedding after premarital sex in Tana River.
What shall we say?
What shall we say? A couple Tana River now say that they're not going to have their wedding because they confessed. And the pastor mesema pana.
What happened? They were guilty.
So they confessed they had premarital sex before marriage.
Yes, they confessed.
Yeah, but I also know of some churches where actually, if that happens, or even if you have the child before marriage, they won't unite you in the church. You have to choose some garden, a specific venue, but not in the altar. So different denominations have different ways of doing their things. Just, just how it is.
For this case, they said they're not going to get married. Now, will they stay single? I don't know. What next?
But there are various ways of getting, like the one I've just said, there's that, there's the AG, you know, there's just...
These are, they called off the wedding. They called
off the wedding, not the marriage. Those are two different things you need to know. They called off the wedding, they didn't call off the marriage.
So can we stay? Is the solution?
They called off the wedding, they didn't call off the marriage. Am I mentioning a summary?
For you to get into marriage.
But you can, there's the AG, You know, there's, you can choose. Maybe the case scenario is the same as what I'm saying. Maybe
what about even the traditional? You go the traditional way.
But you know, when you do that, then you will not have what. Okay, I don't know. Let me just not.
But for someone to call off a wedding because
Regina is so quiet. Happy Mommy Day. Why are you so quiet, Reggie?
When you talk about, it goes back to how we've been enculturated and matters of Christianity. Sometimes I feel as if we are burying our heads in the sand.
The truth is there.
Yes. Yes. Because whether they cancel the marriage or the wedding, if the issue was having premarital sex, they cannot go back in time and change that.
It's already happened. It's already happened.
So I tend to think we are condemning and changing and being judgmental. I am not speaking for anyone. I'm just saying we are burying our heads in the sand when it comes to matters of Christianity.
Okay.
I'm a Christian myself, but I think we need to be practical. So what happens to these two? What if they got pregnant and there was a baby out of this premarital engagement? So what happens to this child?
Yeah.
I'm seeing
Can we
something
be realistic?
I'm seeing something that perhaps, you know, informed this calling off of the wedding. This was actually a pastor. A pastor's wedding was suspended just 2 weeks before the wedding because the bride-to-be spent a night at his place after the vigil. So this was a pastor in the church, not just any other member. But whatever the case, pastor, non-pastor, member, non-member.
We need to be realistic. I think we are counting how the death toll to the Shakahola terror is around 240 persons.
Yeah, 239
When we talk
now.
about Christianity, I think we need to be a bit realistic. We need to be a bit realistic because Christianity is good. I'm not going to condemn Christianity, matters of faith as something and religion. But we also, let's say that my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So let's not condemn, let's not do deeds that would cost. Imagine an innocent life if indeed that actually happened. Remember, no one was there with them. It's just that we do not know exactly what happened, but they confessed. But is it everything? Well, this is just to introduce a conversation maybe we're going to be having on Thursday when we talk about matters of entertainment and such. But as far as news is concerned, the big question is, with the latest turn of events when it comes to the Jubilee Party, who exactly owns Jubilee Party? And now that the bipartisan talks have been suspended for 7 days, is there a likelihood of seeing Maandamano back? We'll be keeping tabs on that. I'm Regina Manyera, and this is In the Headlines. Now we start off with that particular point, matters of politics in regard to what happened with Jubilee, where the Registrar of Political Parties and Director dismissed claims of playing politics in arbitrating the ongoing wrangles facing the Jubilee Party. This comes as opposition leader Raila Odinga faulted the government for allegedly plotting to hijack the party. The party's Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, whose legality in office is a subject of controversy, is threatening to resort to street action to stop the alleged takeover from a splinter group.
The wars facing the DAF party continued to deepen Tuesday as party members trailed their guns on the Registrar of Political Parties, accusing her of playing favourites in arbitrating the case. Claims that the registrar under Ritu has dismissed.
The decision about the removal of the members was made on Friday. So to us, we have not acted against the law because we made the decision before the orders. So that's leave it as a court process from there.
But even as she confirmed the oust of the party Vice Chair David Murathe and Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni was yet to be concluded by the court, Kioni is now threatening street action, accusing the government of plotting a takeover of the party.
So when you have a team trying to kill or sell a party to the other, the registrar should be on the side of the people who are ready to protect that institution. She has not done that, and we are not comfortable with what she is doing. Kwa hivyo, we have done what we have done. We have done the legal bit of it.
Opposition, supported by opposition leader Raila Odinga, who faulted the government for allegedly frustrating democracy and interfering in Jubilee Party affairs.
Political parties must be allowed to conduct their affairs independently without interference from the state.
And in a new twist, Azimio is threatening to stage a walkout from the bipartisan talks of the alleged interference by the government in Jubilee Party affairs. This comes as female legislators allied to Kenya Kwanza have condemned verbal attacks against nominated MP Sabina Chege during the Monday's National Delegates Conference, which they maintain is symbolic.
Yesterday, the scandalous proceedings at Congress grossly offended the dignity of the Kenyan women.
In this 21st century, we know our space as women. Respect women leaders because they are equal to the task just like the men. And that is why we go to the ballot with them.
While the walls seem to be cracking within Jubilee Party, President William Ruto Tuesday chaired a parliamentary group meeting with legislators allied to Kenya Kwanza that sought to rally legislators to support the proposed finance bill that will aid the government in meeting its financial commitments. The bill that has generated debate in the country, with a section of opposition members of parliament threatening to reject sections of the bill. Treasury Cabinet Secretary is expected to present the budget on the at the sitting of the joint parliament on the 10th of June. Now, the National Assembly will resume its sittings on the 6th of June and ahead of the budget reading. Now, the meeting was also attended by rebel members of parliament from Jubilee Party who were expelled during a special National Delegates Conference held by the party on Monday.
We will continuously be a house that consults so that together we can share on ideas and we can have suggestions and we can persuade one another. We are one team. We were elected together on the same side. And therefore, we are running this government together, you from the legislature, and the rest of us from the executive. So it is a collabo of sorts that we are working together.
Your Excellency, you have made it very clear to us in the Cabinet that the elected members in our coalition are the backbone of our programs and our governance, and we must at all times try to align our thinking with their thinking.
The budget presentation, just a correction on that particular date, is that the budget presentation is set to be made on the 15th of June and not the 10th. This is after changes came in last week there. So the budget presentation is set for June 15th. President William Ruto has made 2 new appointments in the Commission on Revenue Allocation and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. In a press statement released by State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed, the head of state has named Mary Wanyonyi as the chairperson of CRA, taking over from Jane Kiringai, whose 6-year term has ended. The president has also appointed Dr. Phyllis Mbowe Washaga as a member of SRC for the next 6 years. The 2 names have been forwarded to Parliament for vetting before they're sworn into office. Now, implementation of the 2/3 gender parity actually remains a mirage unless challenges facing women seeking elective positions are addressed. In a 2023 report on political analysis of women participation in politics, listed high cost of politics, sexual exploitation, and lack of support to young women in politics as high contributors to low numbers of women elected into office. The report, however, indicates the social cultural practices and patriarchal nature of society are no longer the main hurdles facing women politicians in a majority of regions across the country.
Stakeholders pushing for the implementation of the 2/3 gender parity have their work cut out if the latest report by the United Nations Women Programme Strategy is anything to go by. The UN Women 2023 report indicates that participation of women in politics and political leadership is still an uphill task in the push to have more women at the decision-making table.
We must understand that this is a political process, right? And politics is about give and take, and it's about interests. And we can also frame things differently to suit our intended outcomes. So I do think that we must support the President's memo insofar as it will give us what we want.
We are hoping that they'll be passed, and amongst them is the 2/3 gender rule, that all political parties will be forced and, if possible, given a penalty for those who will not have complied, to ensure that they comply.
The Political Economy Analysis of Women Participation in Politics report, dubbed Pambana, says patriarchy is among the least contributors to factors affecting election of women candidates.
Things are becoming much more complex, and if we identify patriarchy alone, we might be missing the opportunity to dig deep into something that is becoming very complex and untie the things that actually make it rough for women.
The report, however, lists high cost of politics, lack of transparent nominations, political party ownership, sexual exploitation, limited information for women in politics, sexualization and defamation of women as major contributors to few women in the political space.
Any barriers that hinder them from advancing in all spheres of life need to be addressed. These include, among others, the exclusion from decision making, cultural beliefs, and gender-based violence. These have been really key drivers when it comes to barriers and when it comes to women attaining these spaces of political leadership.
The report recommends addressing of stereotypes, formation of progressive alliances for women interested in politics, development of policies to guide the nomination process, and timely disbursement of donor funds as measures to cure the situation. According to the report, the percentage of women elected and nominated from the executive to the ward level is still low, despite having increased from 7 to 10.6% in 2022, a decade since the rollout of devolution in 2010.
Now, at least 100 students from Rapogi Boys Secondary School in Uriri, Migori County, were rushed to hospital after exhibiting flu-like symptoms, sending panic in the learning institution. The school's senior principal, Erastus Nyagwa, while confirming the incident, also said that two students have been admitted while the rest were treated and discharged.
According to the school's principal, the students exhibited symptoms of dry cough and flu and were rushed to various hospitals in the area.
We took some to level 4, Migori, and others to the sub-county hospital, Uriri. We assigned about 3 teachers to be in charge. So when that was going on, back at school, we had to buy for all the people in the school masks so that the flu would easily be contained. At level 4, we were interested in knowing. At level 4, we were interested in knowing what could be the cause.
However, 2 students who tested positive of malaria are receiving treatment at St. Joseph Ombo Hospital. The school staff and the rest of students, according to the principal, remain under close observation of healthcare workers.
The condition was not that severe, but we decided not to take chances. As you are aware, that there is an outbreak of influenza as a viral. That's why we had to take note of the precautions that we can do.
The school's administration, however, ruled out any possibility of COVID-19 infection. Rapogi joins the list of schools reporting mysterious illnesses in the last few months.
We'll be keeping tabs on that development in that particular school, Rapogi Boys School in Uriri, Migori County. To the corridors of justice, Justice David Majanja disqualified himself from hearing a lawsuit where a British national has sued the Chief Registrar of Judiciary, Anne Amadi, of an alleged 89 million shillings gold scam. Justice Majanja recused himself from the case, saying that he could not continue hearing it since he sits in the Judicial Service Commission, where Amadi is a secretary to the commission.
Following the withdrawal of Justice Majanja from the case,
Chief Registrar of Judiciary Anna Madi and her son Brian Ocheng, through lawyers Ocheng Odol and Sam Nyaberi, urged the court to vacate the orders freezing their personal accounts pending the hearing and determination of the case. However, the judge declined to vacate the freezing orders, saying it will be dealt with by Justice Alfred Mabea on Wednesday, May 24, 2023. Elsewhere, an expert in procurement witness has told the court during cross-examination that Oryx Service Station, belonging to the then Samburu Governor Moses Lenal Kulal, was engaged directly in a local purchase order.
As the appointing authority, as well as the chief executive officer of the county, he had influence on accounting officer who are awarding and approving this particular payment.
The former county boss is accused of awarding irregular tenders to his automotive fuel station during his tenure amounting to 84.6 million.
In the procurement processes, as alleged in this declaration, then he ought to have declared for each and every tender that they are awarded to supply.
During cross-examination, Joel Kisa had a difficult time explaining the transition of the signatories in the bank account and the method used during the tendering process.
Was there any change in the mandate thereafter?
As signatory, yes, or mandate in ownership?
As signatory.
As signatory, the change only happened in around October 2015. When Moses Kasaini pulled out and now Hesbondati remained.
However, the Director of Public Prosecution, County Secretary, has since indicated there was no money lost in the county.
Now, there is a widely accepted view that a society that hopes to attain development has to invest in its human capital. A senior research fellow at the Japanese Center for Economic Research, Professor Jun Saito, gives an example of Japan, saying the 125 million population is a foremost resource that is driving the country's economic growth. Judith Akola with the details.
Investment in education and a clear strategy on what a country needs in order to achieve growth is its main dividend towards development.
We don't have much natural resources to depend on, and all we have is people.
Japanese researcher and economist Professor Jun Saito says while Japan started off as an agrarian society, the country made huge investments in manufacturing but soon realized that its main resource lay in people.
Providing a good education opportunities to the people, and also provide them with opportunities to upgrade their skills after they finish schools.
Looking back to his country's evolution over the years, Saito is of the view that imports can ruin an economy.
They gradually implemented liberalization of trade. So they were given some time to prepare for the liberalization of trade. So first they imported technology from abroad, but then gradually started to develop their own technology.
He cites Japan's post-World War II recovery that saw the country come up with a long-term vision and designed policies that would catapult the East Asian nation to sustained economic development. But this is not without a challenge, as Japan now faces a shrinking and aging society.
Be witnessing a negative growth rate in the long term. I don't think we can tolerate that kind of a situation. We need to grow. So we need to think of how we can offset the negative impact coming from aging and the shrinking of the population.
Judith Akolo, Tokyo, Japan.
To business, the new Kenya Cooperative Creameries is set to receive 700 million shillings from National Treasury for mopping up excess milk from the farmers following the onset of the long rains. Cooperative's Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui says the amount will partly be spent on boosting operations of dairy processors as the government ramps up efforts to support farmers and cooperatives.
We had issues. Olkalau Dairy had challenges before. We've intervened, working with our financial institutions, the cooperative bank. I want to report that we are going to restore back that dairy sector. We intervene in Meru. Today is the third largest producer. We intervene in KCC. Today is the third milk producer. We are doing individual assessment of each value chain with a view of improving. We have had coffee sector, which has had challenges of pricing and markets. And we are working on an elaborate program to transform that sector.
Kenyans will now be able to purchase Ghanaian products, including premium textiles, agricultural products, processed foods, and shea-based natural cosmetics locally, following the launch of the Ghana Trade House. Director of International Trade, Oliver Conges, says the initiative is a platform for Kenyan businesses to engage with Ghanaian exporters and explore potential partnerships and collaborations to boost intra-African trade.
Kenya is strong in producing coke or coffee. You are strong in producing cocoa. We are buying expensive chocolate from Europe. Why don't you make this chocolate cheaper for us?
Presence of the Ghana Trade House in Kenya signifies a giant step towards regional integration within Africa, and it puts serious action. We have put serious actions behind our words and highlight the commitment to promoting intra-Africa trade and cooperation. Other countries on the continent can also foster similar initiatives, creating a network of trade houses that facilitate trade and economic integration at the regional level.
Now, there's an ongoing expo there, Ghanaian Expo, in the country that is going to be running for the next 4 days at this Reed Center. So you need to get down there and get shopping, especially when it comes to matters of textile. Now, let's delve into sports, where the National Rugby Sevens head coach, Damian McGrath, says the loss of 2 key players to injury and suspension cost them their team during their playoff final against Canada. Speaking at the JKIA after the team returned from London, where they bowed out of the IRB circuit, McGrath said structures need to be looked into so as to bounce back in earnest, proposing several changes to be made. McGrath said it won't be easy for Kenya to go through the qualification rounds to regain their core status.
The Kenya national rugby team is back in the country after losing their core status in the World Series. Shujaa was beaten 7-12 by Canada on Sunday evening and was relegated from the World Series. The Kenyan team did not collect any points from the London leg and ended the season with 40 points, amassed from the previous 10 legs, including Toulouse, which was played just before London. Kenya began the London leg with a narrow 24-19 win over Canada in the first pool playoff match before beating Tonga 38-26 in their second encounter. Kenya tumbled against Uruguay, suffering a 14-10 loss before going down to Canada 12-7. The season ended with Kenya sitting in position 13 on the table behind Uruguay. New Zealand were crowned champions of the 2022-2023 season with a massive 200 points, 21 points better than Argentina, who finished second. Fiji, France and Australia settled for 3rd to 5th positions, while the other African side, South Africa, ended the season in position 7 with just 120 points.
Well, that puts a cap on matters in the headlines this morning. Be sure to look out for more stories on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, where some of the stories that we're keenly focusing on is that today at around 10 a.m. we are going to be at State House, where the State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed is going to be addressing the media in regard to the proposed house levy, as well as looking at what is going to happen to the bipartisan talks that were suspended for the next 7 days and the ripple effect that the crack within Jubilee Party is going to have on the political scene. I'm Regina Manyara, and I wish you a pleasant viewing ahead. Nilikuwa nikianza kukunywa when I was 18. I was a student, and I didn't know just that experimenting will lead to over 10 years of using alcohol and finally getting addicted.
I didn't know there was a method or a technique to drinking. I thought it was just like water or juice. So I started drinking and I blacked out. That was a warning sign. I didn't know. I blacked out and get crashed into a wedding in the village.
Along the way, I would black out. There was attempted rapes. And because it became a whole scandal and everyone was talking in school, instead of stopping the drinking or, reforming my ways, I was drawn more to the alcohol.
But they're saying there are more women with alcohol in their fridge. So nakuta ajaijua ni alcoholic, but haizi lala before apige glass mbili za wine, akipika akona kamzinga ama kuna kitu.
Baraka kanipa zaidi ya nilivyoomba.
Don't call anymore, 'cause I'm still thinking about you. And if I somebody new, baby, baby, baby blue, tell me that you love me, I'm in love. Gold and green, give the banner from you, know your soul clean. Red, gold and green, red, gold and green.
Have you ever seen a free crispy chicken deep fried yani ndani ya mafuta? Where have you seen free of that?
Hey, Michelle, I see you only want the best for me, yeah?
How's that?
You see, Michelle, I've been chasing you for close to a kilometer now. If I do that every morning, I'll be in a very good shape in a very short period of time.
Busira, don't take another bite, man. Don't take another bite. You cannot win twice and eat immediately. Here's your fare.
Wana Kenyanju, stop changing rules wakati ninasinda. What is it, Kamene? Are you okay?
Liongo kabisa. Liongwa.
Will this one help?
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Kenya. We continue with this morning show. And of course, my name is Ram Aguko. It's a pleasure being with you on this fine Wednesday morning. Now, before we proceed even to the next conversation, let's take a look at what is in the headlines this morning. And we take a look at our dailies. I have the Standard, the Star, and the Daily Nation. These are the papers that I want to take a look at this fine Wednesday morning, even as we dissect some of the news making headlines. Remember, our website is up and running, www.kbc.co.ke. We are coming to you live from the broadcasting house here in Nairobi, Kenya. Also, we are streaming. This show is live in our website and on YouTube. So from wherever you're watching us from, be sure that you will get all the information as regards to what is making news this morning. To start, let's start with the Daily Nation. And on the front page is who owns Jubilee? That is a question. Who owns Jubilee? It's confusion galore, where on Monday, former President Kenyatta's camp seemed to have finally had its way in the long-running battle for control of Jubilee. But all that changed yesterday, in a day of many tweets, as the party's registrar and disputes tribunal weighed in on the bitter row, albeit conflictingly, throwing party's leadership and identity of its real officials up in the air. All these changes have brought a spur of conversation, as now we are looking at the Kenya Kwanza camp and the Azimio la Umoja faction being part of this conversation. President Ruto recognizes Sabina Chege as, in quote, my fellow party leader, end of quote. Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga wants him to keep off his camp. That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. Also, bipartisan talks in limbo as Raila team withdraws government side lacks goodwill, says Azimio. Government side lacks goodwill, says Azimio. And of course, still, that is a conversation that has taken center stage in many of our dailies. On the front page still of the Daily Nation, Ruto nominates Mary Chebukati as the Revenue Commission chairperson. President William Ruto has nominated Ms. Mary Chebukati Wanyonyi, the wife of the former IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati, to chair the Commission on Revenue Allocation. Ms. Wanyonyi, who, if approved by Parliament, will take over from Dr. Jane Kiringai, who has completed her 6-year term at the helm of the CRA. Now that is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Moving on to this front page of the Star. Uhuru on the verge of losing Jubilee Party. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. Former President Kenyatta's team is now clutching on an interim order issued by the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. Of course, the sweet win for Kanini Kega team is they were the ones who were thrown out. It is a sweet win for them. Also, on the front page of the Star still, Ruto names Chebukati's wife chairperson of CRA, and clipping NLC's power unlawful, says Azimio. The Azimio la Umoja has termed the move illegal and ill-advised. This is the move by President William Ruto to strip the National Land Commission of its valuation and compensation mandate. Now, the valuation entails the process of determining the market value of a piece of land. Now, the opposition coalition yesterday said Ruto has no constitutional powers to transfer functions of an independent institution. Still, rude workers' drug uptake of HPV vaccine. That is making headlines today. Like many women who take their daughters for the HPV vaccine, we have a story of Catherine who expected the health worker to quell her fears about the side effects of and the rumors but about population control. They talk in a rude manner, according to what he says, and that they don't explain why they are giving the vaccine. She describes the workers in a Kilifi facility. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. Finally, on the front page still, Kalonzo moves to consolidate backyard, trains eye on the 2027 race. Kalonzo move to consolidate his backyard. And finally, let's take a look at the front page of the Standard newspaper. Endgame of Uhuru Party's brutal battle. The Jubilee wars are turning nasty and Uhuru Kenyatta has jumped right in the middle. What happens if his faction wins or loses, and why is it a fight to the wire for the former head of state? That is a question being asked there. Still, on the front page of this particular paper here, ODM wants Orengo rival thrown out. What is that all about? That is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, let me get inside this particular paper. Let me open this paper and read one particular story that is of interest for me. And I know it is going to be of interest also to you. Unions oppose new university funding model and the housing levy. Of course, that is what is on this particular paper here. University unions yesterday termed the new funding formula for higher education as discriminative, punitive, and non-rewarding to hard-working students. The union said that the funding formula would strain many parents and turn universities into clubs for a few privileged students. They say the move is a clever way of reintroducing the unsuccessful merger of public universities. Unions fear it will contribute to low intake, high dropout rates, and deplorable living conditions for students. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a story that is making headlines today, and it is what sets pace to our next conversation this fine Wednesday morning. University funding. Remember, the government announced a new funding system for universities, and that the new system will fund vulnerable and extremely needy students, providing them with scholarships, you get that, loans, and bursaries. Ladies and gentlemen, to help us in this conversation, even as talk about university funding and matters concerning HELB, highlighting some of the challenges faced, I am joined to my far right by Kingorin Degwa. He is the lending manager for the High Education Loans Board. And next to me, I am with Geoffrey Monari, the CEO at University Funding. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
And of course, first things first, even as talk about matters concerning university funding, I want to start with you, Geoffrey, because here we are looking at what has made headlines today. You've heard that story, and there are those that are opposing that particular move. Will this move by government solve the current financial crisis that are inflicting institutions of learning?
Thank you very much for having me this morning. The new funding model, if I can explain so that to give a background,
all right,
has got 4 components. That is, the government will be funding students, the most vulnerable, at 82% of their cost of the program, on scholarship, and 18% on loan. And then the second group will be the extremely needy, where the government will be funding students at 70% scholarship and 30% loan. And these 2 groups, the students will not pay anything. Therefore, this means that for the first time in this country, the most vulnerable and extremely needy students will go to university without removing any money from their pocket, but fully financed by the national government through scholarships and loans. Then we have 2 other groups, that is the less needy and the needy, who will be given scholarships and loans at various percentages. That is the less needy, the needy will be given scholarships at 53% and loans at 40%. And the less needy will be given a scholarship of 38% and a loan of 55%. And will only pay for each of the groups 7%. If you look at the actual costs or the amount that they will pay, their students will pay 10,000 per year. That is, in 2 semesters, they'll be required to pay 5,000 approximately.
And remember, still, there are those that might not be able to afford that. And we will come to that.
Yeah, we will come to that. Yes. But remember, currently they are expected to pay 16,000. So it means the government has reduced that amount. Not forgetting that they will still qualify for upkeep from the Higher Education Loans Board for their daily sustenance in terms of upkeep, to pay for their accommodation, ranging from 26,000 to 60,000. So it means that what the government has done is to give more support to the universities. The government is putting in 20.3 billion extra this coming financial year for these students. This means that the current crisis in the universities, the question you asked me, will be reduced. We have got debts of up to 60 billion, and if you see the government puts in 20 billion in this financial year, and moving forward there will be more money pumped into the sector, it means the situation will start to improve.
All right. I love that elaborate answer. You're saying it will improve.
Yes.
It means it might not solve everything all at once, but things will be better.
Yes, definitely. It's not a situation where you solve everything at one go, but we are going to start improving, and it will take some time. That is the truth. It may take about 3-4 years for the situation to improve in the universities. However, for the students, the situation will improve immediately, because we are giving them more funds to be able to ensure that the quality of education in the country improves moving forward, because the facilities that will be provided by the national government will have been increased by 20 billion.
Let me look at what you said, and I will come to you in regards to this, because I'm interested in finding out the procedure that is there.
Okay.
All right. But let me come to you, King Ori. Help has been a subject of conversation. Yes, we are looking at this new funding for universities, but is it possible to sustain it? You mentioned that we may see the ripple effects of this in the next, you say 4 years to come.
Yes.
Now, 2 months ago, 140,000 students in public universities and TVET institutions missed their loans that they applied after help ran out of cash. I'm looking at sustainability. Will it work? Help ran out of cash 2 months ago. Help me understand this mathematics. Will it work?
Thank you for this invite. And just to go to your question about sustainability, I think the government is quite committed on this, and the president himself has been pushing for this, and that's the reason why the gap we have, the 140 you are talking about, that's the challenge we are trying to solve by bringing in more money, and also making sure that finance is not a barrier to education. Because you see, these 140,000, we do not know where they are, some of them. We know some are struggling, some the institutions are holding them. They are not charging them fees, they are telling them, we are going to wait to see whether the government is going to bring in some money. So we are solving a problem, and what we are looking, like what Jeff has said, the 29% of the students, the needy and the vulnerable, they are going in without paying anything. Even the charges, the extra charges, there's like computer fee, ID card, medical, all of it is put in this scholarship and the loan. And you look at what the unions are saying about students. If you have all the needy students covered, and we are talking about orphans, we are talking about students from marginalized areas, we are talking about students whose parents right now are getting cash transfers because of either they are old or they are in those marginalized areas where the drought is really affecting them. So if those students are covered, and they are covered, and if you look at the amount of government contribution, 82% scholarship. I don't think, maybe I think the union, we need to give them more information. I think we have a plan of how we are going to sensitize them after this, so that we are at par. But I think this is something very good for the students, and this could be the reason why the student community is silent. They have been talking to us, and we have shown them how it's going to affect them. So it is sustainable from a perspective of the government want to support it, and also help is going to enhance the loan recovery mechanisms. We have plans to really look for the hard costs. We have quite a number of guys who are not paying, and we have a Marshall plan happening in the current month or next month, where we are going to smoke them out. So
and we will come to the aspect of defaulters in a few. Still, looking at the numbers, and of course now I want to get the statistics right from the both of you. Do you have the number of students that you target for university funding and for help, and you're saying that if we manage this particular number, we will be okay? Or is there a limit towards this particular funding? Is there a limit that this money can only reach?
No. We are targeting all the students. We last KCSE 2022 class, we the students who got C+ and above were 173,127. That is the group we are looking at to start with this funding model.
And so, is that the same group that HELB is working with?
I told you we are conjoined. We are doing
yes,
like common. And actually, even the way they are going to apply, we are working out together. With the UFB.
You're working together.
Yes.
Now, how were students identified and placed for this partial or full university funding? You will explain whether it's partial or full. How are they identified and placed for this funding that is being offered?
The Universities Act, Section 54, stipulates that the government shall be able to fund all students that are placed by COOPs. Therefore, all the students that are going to be placed by COOPs who get C+ and above are the ones that we are targeting. And the number that I've given is 173,127. COOPs will identify. The process has already started as we speak. Students are choosing the subjects based on the cluster, how they qualified. Once that process is finished, they'll be given a period to revise the courses based on the application process. And finally, we then shall be able to open the application process, and it is going to be joint. We are not going to have a separate application process whereby the students will apply for the scholarship and the loan moving forward.
So it's going to be co-joined?
Yeah, co-joined.
Yes. No separation?
No separation.
All right?
Yeah. Because we are funding the same student. Yeah. So why should we do separate? He should be able to see what I'm doing, and we should be able to see what he's doing.
So regardless of the course that a student picks,
yes,
the funding will still be there?
Yes.
Because I was looking at some of the requirements to identify whether someone gets this particular funding, whether it's partial or full, that some of the courses being selected affect the funding. Is it true that only the bottom-up courses are the ones that promote funding? Because that is a conversation that has been trending even online.
No, we are funding based on the level of need. I think we need to make that very clear.
It is not based on the subject selected.
No.
All right.
No. It's based on the level of need of a student. The subject you select will be based on the cost of the amount. That is the only separation. That some subjects will be some courses will be more expensive than others. But if you look overally, we are funding all of them based on the percentage of that course. So it means if you are undertaking a course that is more expensive, it means you'll get more scholarship and more loan.
What about parents' income? Does that affect the...
Maybe I can comment.
Yes.
You know, in Kenya, it is almost impossible to know parental income, and nobody will declare that income anywhere. Even KRA will not give you. What KRA might give you is an indicator of that income by maybe giving you the tax that they're paying. And even you ask Kenyans, the students, is your parent working? Most of them hide that. So what we use are other indicators that can tell us that you're a poor person. So we have what you're calling a mean testing instrument, which we have developed and tested for the last 20 years.
All right.
We are perfecting it this year further, sharpening it further by using third-party validation.
And you will tell us about that after this break.
Yes.
Let's take this break and then we'll be back. As we talk about matters concerning universities funding, let's dissect this particular conversation to help you understand what HELP is all about, what the universities is all about, and if there is money, where is the money? Do you have it? Have you received it? Talk to me. Let's take a short break. We'll be back in a bit.
Nakum nitawazidishieni, yani iwe itakavyokuwa. Ikiwa sisi ni watu wenye kumshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu, Allah atatuzidishia kwa neema mbalimbali ambazo kwamba tunazijua na zile tusizojua.
Ikafikia kiwango ambacho Nana Aisha radhiallahu anha aliweza kumuuliza, hivi mbona wazidisha ibada kwa wingi sana wakati Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala amekujalia neema? Basi Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam alijibu kwa kuuliza, je, sipaswi kuwa mja mwenye kumshukuru Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ambaye ni Mola wangu?
That's the power of remembering Allah.
Wewe usishike simu yangu bwana, umesikia?
Manake mimi askari wako walipa shingapi?
I'm not going, I'm here to stay. You leave this house. Hauna shughuli zingine za kufanya? I am a man of few words.
Kisha nikome.
Beno.
Mimi.
Yes, you go.
Na mke mwingine Mike naye huyu. Nenda polisi lakini.
Una kilo mtani.
Heshima unipi Mike.
Pafu sana.
Unataka nini? Unataka nini? Unataka nani hiyo sura ya kazi?
Wewe ana shoplift. That is wrong.
Nimeweka tishu kwa njekeke, si ndio? Kwa njekeke.
Keke ni nini?
Njekeke ni nini mheshimiwa?
Si nimekwambia ulitumie lugha ya taifa ile tutaelewa.
Hata mimi koona kwa CCTV nini ikoweka hapo Dani hapa Dani.
Najua kiini.
Wewe unajua
mheshimiwa.
Ongea.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Basta na bali Crystal Play Council.
Are baba yeye iko sema nini? Mimi hapa najua hiyo
Ni watu wawili mnaishi aje ndani?
Tunaishi tu ndani ya nyumba.
Romantically.
Tunakuwa hapa mnagombana tu saa yote, kwanza mwingie hapa mnagombana.
Ni vile tuko mbele ya watu.
Ndio mnagombanaga mbele ya watu. Na sasa hawa watoto wote unawaleta duniani kuwapatisha tabu ya nini?
Nani alisema yuko na sahani yao?
All right, thank you so much for sticking with us. We continue with this conversation. It's all about university funding today. I'm with Geoffrey Monari, CEO, University Fund, and Kingori Ndagwa, Learning Manager at the Higher Education Loans Board. My name is Ram Aguko, if you've just joined us. And we are proceeding with our conversation. Before we took that break, Kingori, I was on you actually.
Yes.
And we were talking about the issue of parents' income and the criteria being used to select or identify this student and place them to get this particular funding or loan. You are mentioning something about that, and I want to pick it up from that particular area here. And let me know, if a parent earns a sum, for example, 50,000 shillings in a month.
Yes.
And they have one child.
Yes.
Another parent earns the same amount, 50,000 shillings, and they have like 5 kids. Do these students get equal opportunities to get this particular funding? Is there any particular selection or criterion for this?
Thank you. You see, we have what we call the means tested instrument. Now, this instrument, what it does, it looks at your ability or inability to pay. Now, if the school fees for the university is known, like let's say medicine is, to use your income of 50. So if you know that medicine is 700, and maybe after discounting it's coming maybe to around 543. So what will happen? This criteria will look at the ability of this household. The parent income is 50, and that's the available income. They look at what do you use on food and other variables. What do you use on land, travel, fuel. So all that is removed from that income. And if you see, if the income was 50, this guy will be getting a negative. So there is no way he can be able to pay for university funding. So we give him a full loan and scholarship.
Right.
So there are criteria which is already designed, tested, and working.
Geoffrey, on the same?
Yeah, as Joe has said, this model actually, even with that income, is able to ensure that students who are most needy do not have a heavy loan as they leave the university.
Exactly.
Unlike the current model where you are given more loan when you are needy, and when you exit the university, it means you'll have a higher loan than the person who was less needy. We have reversed that. And I think Kenyans should be celebrating, because you'll find that the children from the most vulnerable families will have a very easy time repaying whatever small loan they'll be given, unlike the current model where they are the ones who bear the highest responsibility upon graduation. Yes.
But I'm still wondering whether it will be equal for these two students who come from separate families earning similar income.
No, it can't be equal, because as Joe has said, you have got a family of 5. So we will look at the family background. If you are both earning 50,000 and you have got 5 children, for example, in the university, then that is a situation where we shall be able to prorate and see how much each, for example, is a child is prorated from the 50,000. That is just an example among other variables. So we don't want to say that that is the only indicator that we shall use. There are various other indicators. So somebody should not say that because we are 5, we divide that by 5 and we are all going to get this amount. There are other indicators that will be used together with the fact that the income is 50,000 and one has got 5 children and one has got 1 child.
Is there any biasness that Kenyans need to know that isn't there? You know, some Kenyans may feel that there is biasness. Yes, we both deserve this university funding, but because you come from a particular tribe, or you support a particular political party, or you voted for a particular person, then you may not be able to get this loan. Help me understand that particular aspect.
Ram, thank you very much. I think the only bias we have is that you are needy. That is the only bias. The rest, no one knows how anyone voted. No one knows the means testing instrument.
But you've heard of such kind of conversations?
Those are things that we hear on social media, but those are things that we know do not matter in terms of application. When it comes to application, we do not ask for the tribe of the person. We do not. The only thing we ask for is the socio-economic status. So that will not be used. We don't know how anyone voted. It is first of all unconstitutional. To look at this process and give loans based on how somebody voted, because that is not what we do.
Those are not the
where
biases
they come from.
We are looking at, yes.
The only bias we have is vulnerability, how somebody is needy, so that we ensure the most needy are able to benefit maximum.
All right.
Yeah.
Still, I wonder, is the money there? Is the money there? There was a conversation from HELP that I had asked you earlier on about the students that missed their loans. Should we expect such to occur again if this model is to pick up? If this model is to succeed, should Kenyans be satisfied that it will never happen again, coming from where you sit?
Maybe I comment, but Jeff will do the further analysis. But never, we can't say never, but we know from what we are seeing in the short term that we have the government support, and we are also going to enhance our recoveries. We can see how our recoveries are going to move, and we can see the commitment. Even now, as we discuss, there's a lot of discussions between even ministries on how to make sure this thing takes off very well. So never, maybe many years from now, we cannot be able to predict maybe more than 10 years. But in the short term, 5 years, 10 years, we can see this thing solving the problem of funding for students. And people are talking about universities owing 60 billion. What about the students? The amount of pressure the students are going through accommodation. You find students whose rooms have been locked by landlords. Landlords confiscating mobile phones, and they know that the student is using the mobile phone to read, but they confiscate because they can't be able to pay. Students who are not feeding. So this model actually is designed to solve this problem. And we have looked at all possible assumptions, all possible issues, all possible risks surrounding the model, and I think we are good to go, and we are comfortable from where we sit, and we can assure Kenyans that this is the right way to go.
Are you still waiting as help for Parliament to release 5.7 billion shillings?
Yes, we are still waiting.
You're still waiting for that?
Yes.
Do you see it coming?
Well, government will do what? Well, they will honor their commitment. But that's an issue we are monitoring as we come to the end of the financial year. I think June is 30th of June is a few weeks from now.
Yeah.
We'll know when we get there.
You will know when you get there?
Yeah.
So there are chances that Kenyans may be worried by then?
I cannot really comment on that right now.
No, I think Ram, what we are looking at,
yes.
This funding model was announced none other than by His Excellency the President.
Exactly.
You don't need any other commitment than
that is a commitment we need. His word.
That is a commitment, and we have his word. We have seen the commitment he has put in this funding model. He has had several meetings with us and many other stakeholders so that we can come up with this funding model. And with that commitment, it tells you that the support from the top is there. That is from the head of state, our minister, and the PS, and across government. And it is my belief, and we know that with that commitment, then the things are going to change in the university. This is the first time, and this is the only government that has looked at this issue critically since independence. The university crisis has been growing over a period of time, but nobody has really looked at this matter the way this government has looked at this issue.
So the truth is, yes, there was a problem, and now we are working on it. Because I'm looking at also HELB. Over the years, HELB has struggled to meet some of the, the rising demand for loans. The number of student number has increased, so that is still a big challenge.
Yeah, but we have not restructured, except this year, and this was because of the economy. You see the
COVID-19.
COVID shocks, and there were some budget cuts, and recoveries also went down. They were affected. So it's a situation that is not different from what is happening in the economy. But this year, of course, we were hit badly, and we'll see how to recover that as we go on. Because those students will still be funded going forward.
And remember, this problem, as he has said, did not start now. It is an accumulation of various issues from COVID. Remember, universities were open, people were earning salaries, but there were no students. Hence the debts the universities have. The cuts that they received, there were various cuts because we all know at that period of time there was no tax, there was tax relief, there were many issues that were happening. So it is accumulation of various issues that have taken time for us to reach here. To get out of here is not also an event. It is not an event. It is also a process.
It's a process.
For us to
took time.
It will, yes, we will also have to take time to come out of it here. That's why I'm saying it is not an event that this year we are going to just come out of it. It is a process, and with the commitment we have, we are going to come out of here. That I can assure you. Yes.
Now, still, I want us to give further feedback in regards to this, because in one of our dailies here that I mentioned earlier on, we have unions that are opposing this new funding model. Now, speaking in Mombasa, the Kenya University Staff Union, that is KUSU, University Academic Staff Union, and Kenya Union of Domestic Hotels, Education Institutions, Hospital, and Allied Workers said that this model, and you'll help me understand this, they said that this model is a recipe for low enrollment, high dropout rates, deplorable living conditions of students due to non-funding of their upkeep. Is this true? Is this a concern? And how can we solve this? Kingori.
Just like my colleague here has said,
yes,
the government is placing all students who have qualified. There is even nobody going to module 2 because all of them have been given government spaces and scholarship. So I don't see how the deplorable conditions is coming in and then low enrollment. Because you see, if there's 100% transition for anybody who got a C plus and above. And everybody has been assured of, in fact, the scholarship is like a must. You must, so long as you apply, you must get.
But remember, it's not 100%. There's some money that Kenyans needs.
Yeah, but for the vulnerable, the two groups which comprise almost 30% of the students, and this one we are getting from our data going backwards 10 years back.
Yes.
The people who don't have incomes, people with maybe incomes below 1,000, 10,000 per year. So we have modeled all that to get to that position. So if the less needy have been told to contribute 7% from their pocket, and the 7% is maybe in a year is a maximum. I think the maximum of 38,000 thereabout. Okay. If you look at the most expensive program, and this is spread. You don't pay fees at once. You pay in semesters, like 2 semesters, 3 semesters. We see it fits very well with the cash flows for our society. Look at people like me and you. In fact, I don't think some of us require this support, but assuming people who are working are able to apply for this, the amount of money that they are contributing is so little. Now, the issues of upkeep for students, this is assured.
Yes, yes.
The highest students is getting 44. And remember, when they get this money, the 44,000, they don't do anything else with it, like paying for some other costs at the university, paying for internet. No. All those costs have been taken care of by the scholarship and the loan.
Universities Union yesterday said that the funding formula would strain many parents and turn universities into clubs for the privileged students. Is that true?
No.
Sorry. It will be a club for the poor.
I think that is what we are going to say. It is the opposite, because
it's the opposite.
We have guaranteed students who are the most needed to go to walk into the university without paying anything. Unlike the current status where you give them a loan, they still have to remove some money from the loan they are given to chip in into their university education. This has, I think what we need to do with the unions, we will, as Joe said, we need to sit with them and sensitize them more. We had a session, when we had a session with vice chancellors, the union was there. Some of their members were there and they listened. We need further discussions with them so that...
Did they agree with you?
Yes. During that discussion, they asked questions and they were answered. And we left, everyone who left that session was agreeable that this is a better model. And that was a discussion that we have held with them. And we continue, because as these issues evolve, we are not saying that it is an end to the discussions we had. We are saying that let us have further discussions with the union so that we explain and show them that this is a better model from where we stand. And for them, it would be good for them to support, because there will be more money put into the universities, and from there they can be able to even have universities do much better than what they are doing right now. So the issue of enrollment, as Joe has said, we are saying all the students will be enrolled. So where does that come out? And how does it happen that there will be dropouts? Because all the students will be enrolled. When it comes to the most needy, all of them will go into the university without paying anything. So there will be no dropout. The ones that we are asking for the households to support, these are students who, if you look at their history, before this, they were able to even pay for their primary education, secondary education. And if there is a case where the household income has changed, maybe the parents are not there anymore, or the parents have lost their income, there is an appeal process to the application of the scholarship and loan, and the students will be reconsidered and given what they deserve.
All right.
Yes.
So there is no preference as to one particular student applying is going to be more privileged than the other. It's equal for everybody.
The privilege, and we must insist, the privilege is for the needy students. Yes. The people who deserve, and the vulnerable.
Yes. King Ori, let me come to you in regards to what's happening in HELP. Help me understand this. Many are complaining that they are trying to apply, but they don't get any responses. Is that true? Some have even gone to social media to, send out tweets.
We normally follow the placement of students. So KUPS is on the people applying. They will apply for the next 3 weeks. And then a revision, maybe another 1 week or 2 weeks. So we are going to open with them. Right now, and also, of course, we have to wait for the new budget to be released. That's when we are going to open. So if anybody is trying to go to the portal at this moment, we are closed. There are some products which are open, but those are partnership products. We manage loans for other companies like Johnson & Johnson. We have an USAID product. We have county products. Counties are, even constituencies, even corporates like Kenya Maritime Authority, we have their money. So those ones are ongoing. And so if you go in and you are not mapped to those products, you cannot go through. I think what is making people think we are open, there is a product we have for the National Council for the people living with disability. It's for everybody, TVET and a graduate, and it's open. But you cannot access unless you have that card number. There's a number they are given when they are registered. And we have an API. When they come to our portal, put the number, the card is searched in the database for NCPW. If it's not there, you can't go through. So I think there's that confusion.
But then we can't have some mode of communication whereby they can know that this application is closed within this period and this application is open, because they are saying that they applied and they are not getting any feedback.
Maybe it is the platforms they are using, because if you go to our social media handles, we have a matrix of all our product and which is open and which is not open. If you go to our portal, our website, the same thing. And maybe for the public, for students, those ones we communicate with them on a daily basis. We have WhatsApp groups with all universities and student leaders. So we communicate and we give a lot of information. However, maybe a few people could have missed out the information. We're going to enhance the communication on this, especially now that it's coming out.
And of course, we encourage all of you, every Kenyan, to go to their website.
Yes.
Check out what is there. Get to know all the information that you need before you raise a complaint, because you may actually be doing something at the wrong time.
The website has got FAQs, frequently asked questions. Currently, we have not opened for this year, for the scholarship of the loan. So when that process happens, we will make a big announcement and everyone will be able to know. The process that is currently ongoing is selection of programs.
Or programs?
Yes,
programs.
in
Not
the
students.
universities. And students. The students are the ones selecting the program.
Yes.
That is what is currently happening. After we finish that process, then we shall move to the next process of application for scholarships and loans. So we urge the Kenyans to be patient. Once the application process for the programs is complete, the admission letters will be loaded on the individual universities. Then you will be able to print out and you'll get further information on how to proceed. Yes.
Yeah, but let's be also, I've seen the last 2 months a lot of fake news that KUPS is open. Even before KUPS was opened, I could see them struggling. HELB is open and it has everything, even our logos, everything. So let people be aware of those fake news, but we are going to communicate officially once we open.
And of course, let's also highlight that particular conversation that you've said there. Yes. Social media has a lot, and if we are not careful, Kenyans may be misled. What are some of those things that you've managed to come across that we need to highlight on this particular show here that we believe Kenyans need to know? Let me start with you still, Kenyan King.
We have what we call FAQs, and we have posted in all our handles. So you just go and you check. You'll be able to see what is happening and what is trending at any particular time in our portals.
Yes.
So I think it is information, and the Bible says trust and obey, but I don't trust social media. The policy should be trust but verify. Verify
but for this is the word of God. Trust and obey the word of God.
But for government issues, verify.
For government issues,
trust but verify. Especially social media, very tricky.
All right.
I think what I would want to say about social media, we have seen various individuals, social media handles, where students are being advised on how to fill the form, on what information to give. This is very unfortunate because it is going to mislead Kenyans who actually will end up not filling the form properly but relying on individuals who have given them a way forward. So it is our request that if you are filling your form, please go to Huduma centers where you can be able to get the correct information. Use Huduma center facilities where they are free. If you need any clarification, please contact Higher Education Loans Board, COOPS, or the Universities Fund to get the proper information. Huduma centers are the most preferred where you are because it's free and the facilities, the people there have been trained. For the other cyber cafes, we also have realized that there's students who go and give personal information, even up to allowing individuals who they don't know to open for them accounts, fill for them for the forms. And this later, you find a student saying, I'm not the one who filled this form this way. And that is a danger because you find somebody has filled the form and the student is not aware what was filled in that form. So we urge everyone to be able to get correct information from the institutions that are available and not rely on social media or individuals who are not employees of these three institutions.
Yeah. Sometimes how do these people get your info? You wonder. How do they get all the information they need?
Especially for the students, they are sharing everything like Jeff has said. Actually, they fill a printed form, including the account number, emails, everything. They give the cyber.
For this case, somebody did not apply. They did not apply. But
now the guy, the cyber guy uses this information and types. He prints the form. He makes sure it is stamped, fake stamps, and delivered to the nearest Huduma center. And they are charging a lot of money. And let me also tell Kenya that these services are free. Don't pay anything. If we realize that you are trying to do that, we will buy you. Totally, and there will be no discussion.
Application
all the way from placement to funding. If you try to tamper with that process, you will face the full force of the law. People, there are a lot of people taking advantage of Kenyans, asking for money. Especially when they go to the portal, they find it not open. They say, "Oh, I can help you. Send me this." Yeah.
The process of application for the scholarship and loan is free.
And every Kenyan needs to understand that.
Yes.
Do not pay any amount of money to apply for these loans.
Yes, and scholarship.
And scholarship.
Yes.
I want us to take a short break, and then when we will be back, this is about the conversation to establish a merger of public universities. We need to talk about that. Should public universities merge? And of course, even as we talk about that, we have the National Skill and Funding Council that amalgamates HELB, TVET, and University Funding Board together with the CUSPs. Should they be merged? That is a conversation that we're about to have after this break. Keep it KBC Channel 1. Keep it Good Morning Kenya. Let's take that break. We'll be back in a bit.
Berlin is calling. The footballing fraternity is taking note. Defending champions RB Leipzig have reached the DFB Pokal final for the third successive season after an emphatic 5-1 win over SC Freiburg.
Danny Olmo, there's no pressure on him, and he's found Nkunku! Ruth useless.
Similarly, Eintracht Frankfurt are into the final of the DFB Cup following a 3-2 victory over VfB Stuttgart. The DFB Pokal hits a crescendo on Saturday, 3rd June at 9 p.m. when RB Leipzig will be up against Eintracht Frankfurt, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. Don't miss out on the unexpected delight.
It is Colomboigny against Bredlow. A battle Colomboigny was never going to lose.
KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
From you know your soul clean, red, gold and green.
When everybody's trapped up in the beds and the streets get dread all late at night.
Abantu ba Mintombi Yamore. Your favorite KBC station, Minto FM, is now at your doorstep. Enjoy the hottest KC music, informative and entertaining shows, and reliable news only on Minto FM. Tune in to Minto FM on 91.7 FM in Nyamira, Kisii, and its environs. Minto FM in Nyamira,
All right, welcome back. This is still Good Morning Kenya. Universities funding is a conversation of the day. Now, we proceed with this conversation. Now, let me quote or highlight what the UASU Coast Chapter Secretary Josiah Odalo said in regards to this particular funding issue. Odalo said that there is a need for productive public participation involving university students, employees, and management to be constituted. And this one goes to you, Jeff. When you talk about public participation, that has been an issue that has been there. I don't know if you've had that particular conversation being raised as a concern. Tell me, is it something that we need to consider? Did it take place, or will it take place if it hasn't?
Public participation is ongoing. This is part of the process. We have had a session with the students, had a conference where the student leaders were called and they have given their views. We have had sessions, as I said, with vice chancellors, not one session, several sessions.
But then why is this, why is Josiah talking about that? If student leaders have been involved?
Yes, and that's why I'm saying that we need to continuously engage in this process because clearly there is still a need to ensure that we meet all the stakeholders. I'm saying it is a process that is ongoing.
It's a process. All right.
And we have already held discussions with various stakeholders, and we shall continue. We have not stopped. We will continue engaging and explaining where we are coming from and where we are going to, so that we are all on the same page. And where we find that there are good suggestions that we can be able to implement in the process, I can assure you that we are open to that discussion and will be able to engage in that. Yes.
And let me come to you, Kingori, in regards to public participation. How does help come in this particular conversation? Do you have it?
Yes, like just less than a month ago, we called all student leaders, not one, every university was bringing two, a dean, a finance officer, a student finance officer, and registrars. And the idea is that we gave them this model to understand it, and they supported. Actually, they found that when they realized that they are going to get an addition of 20.3 billion, they were okay with the model. They said that it happened today. And this is information which is verifiable. We have the registers, they signed, all those. So,
all right.
And there's and we haven't stopped. So we are still going further. And remember, before that happened, I think there was the one when the vice chancellors came at Kenya's.
We have actually had 3 sessions with vice chancellors.
Yeah.
Kenya School of Government. We had a meeting in Mombasa. We had another one back at Kenya School of Government, and the final one with the discussions with the president himself. Those are 4 meetings with vice chancellor.
Yes. And last week we also called the media to Naivasha for all media houses came for a briefing, and we just talked about the model. Nothing more was discussed there.
And I'm looking at the conversations that came after all these meetings. Yet still we say we need to have more.
Yes, we
need to talk about this more.
Yes. This process is not an event. I keep on insisting. We are in a journey, and this journey we are requesting that Kenyans and people of goodwill to be able to internalize and look at this as a journey, and we can be able to move together. Where there are issues, let us be able to discuss and explain further. And where we find the improvements that are required, we shall be able to embrace those that are adding value to this model.
Now, there is a question by David, and he is asking, is the university funding the same as HELB? All right, maybe we can...
no, we have...
Do they have the same... I think maybe he's referring to maybe the same
the institutions. No, the institution is not the same, because the university's fund was created to ensure sustainability of universities. And this is when we were funding universities. We are now funding, the new model is student-centered. And to ensure that, we have moved from funding the universities to funding the student based on the scholarships. And that is where we are working together to ensure that even the application process is the same, so that the student gets this process easy and they are able to be assisted in a much better way.
What about the principles of this money? For HELB, you have to pay it back.
Yes.
For universities funding, does it have
a scholarship? You don't pay a scholarship back. Yes.
All right. So I believe you've been answered. Now, let me come to you, King Ori, in regards to this particular issue. Defaulters. My oh my, you're really struggling with that. I don't know how things are currently.
But comparatively, we may not be doing so badly, because we have a performing loan portfolio over 75%. And we are moving towards, the target is to move towards 80. If you look at other bodies, even in South Africa, they are 30%. 70%.
So we are doing well as a country.
But maybe because of the way the economy is happening, we may not be moving very fast towards the 90-something%, because that's where we want to be like the banks. So because of the economy, unemployment, and job losses, that's being it is impacting on the recovery efforts by the board.
So you're saying it's relative. I wonder, are Kenyans paying?
Yeah, they are paying.
Help.
Oh, they are paying, and paying aggressively. We are getting this year, we're almost 5 billion, and the target is 5.2. So by the end of June, we'll have hit our target.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Even with the economy, we are still focused. And Kenyans are very patriotic. They want to pay. Very patriotic, and they are very happy when they are paying.
We have seen many Kenyans benefit from HELB.
Yes.
Including our own members of parliament.
Yes.
Coming out to say, you know what, this thing helped us back in the day. Well, if you haven't paid your HELB loan, kindly do so.
And actually, maybe a parting shot on that.
Yeah.
The guys who have left, the ones who have graduated, like you and me, are the ones who are supposed to pay for the ones who are coming. So that is the emotional connection now we are trying to create. And that's why I think the efforts are being supported by Kenyans. Yeah.
And of course, finally, to quote Odalo, he said, and I quote, that it is our take that the so-called student funding model is a clear way of reintroducing the unsuccessful merger of public universities through a forced collapse of higher institutions of learning. The model should be put to hold. End of quote. Quoting Odalo. That touches on you, Geoffrey. What do you think about that?
The discussion on margin has never been discussed in all this discussion that we are having. The student-centered model will be based on the student, and just to make him more comfortable, Remember, all universities declare their available positions before KUPS opens the portal. So it means that there is no university that will be allocated more than the capacity that they have, because CUE, the Commission for University Education, has already gone and checked and has seen the capacity of each university. Therefore, all the students will be able to be placed in all the universities across the country. There is no one university that will be able to have a number of students more than other universities based on their capacity. Yes, so it is not a conversation that has been there. I have not had it. This is the first time that I've had that discussion. And let him be rest assured that that is not the focus of this model.
All right.
Yes.
Of course, finally, to you, King Ori, any message to Kenyans watching us today in regards to this particular conversation as a parting shot?
Yes, this is a new change, and changes are usually not very comfortable. They say only a baby in wet diapers likes change. So let's support this model. It's going to be good for us. And I think in the next 1 year, they will be here. Let them check and see what happened in the year. They will thank us later for introducing this model.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You have interesting proverbs. I love them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Geoffrey, still on you, parting shot, final message to Kenyans watching us today in regards to this particular conversation.
For me, I think these discussions are good. We need to continuously discuss where we have issues. I encourage everyone to come out and get in touch with us in these three institutions for any clarification, so that we can walk this journey together. We are committed, and I can assure you the President, the CS and the PS are committed to ensure that the universities and the university education is taken back to where it was. We are creating students for the global market, not for only Kenyans. And that is where we must ensure the quality is maintained and is enhanced moving forward.
Thank you so much.
And with the new model, I can assure you that that is where we are headed to.
Wonderful. Still, when we were talking, at some point, it crossed my mind that a particular student will get a scholarship or help. They will get their loan, they will graduate, only for them to land in the job market and be told, you don't have the skills. After all that struggle, they have to go through refresher courses, and they have to be retrained, and they have to go through another period of training.
Yeah, and hence we ensure quality. By giving quality, then that process will not happen. And we'll allow Kenyans. You've seen the German Chancellor was here and saying that there are 250,000 jobs in Germany. But if we don't have the skills...
If we don't have the skills, how will we get them?
How will we get them?
Anyway, thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. I appreciate your presence, and of course that is in regards to this particular conversation. It's on that note that we bring this to a close. I was with Geoffrey Monari, the CEO of Universities Fund, and to my far right, King Ori Ndegwa, Lending Manager at the Higher Education Loans Board, also known as HELB. My name is Ram Maguko. It has been a pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for engaging with us. The hashtag, as always, is still Good Morning Kenya at Ram Maguko and at KBC Channel 1. We are taking a short break, and we will still have a lot coming up your way. Doreen Aranga is still coming up with the next conversation of the day that you do not want to miss. From my end, is thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye. May God bless you. May God bless the work of your hands. Good Morning Kenya takes a short break. We'll be back in a bit.
you ever seen a free crispy chicken deep fried yani ndani ya mafuta? Where have you seen free of that?
Michelle, I see you only want the best for me, eh?
How's that?
You see, Michelle, I've been chasing you for close to a kilometer now. If I do that every morning, I'll be in a very good shape in a very short period of time.
Busira, don't take another bite, man. Don't take another bite. You cannot win twice and eat immediately. Here's your fare.
Bwana Kenyanji, stop changing rules wakati ninasinda.
What is it, Kamene? Are you okay?
Liongo kabisa. Liongwa.
Will this one help?
Don't call anymore, 'cause I'm still thinking about you. Have you found somebody new? Baby blue, tell me that you love me. I'm in love with gold and green. Wave the banner from you, know your soul clean. Red, gold and green. Red.
When everybody's wrapped up in their beds and the streets get dread all late at night.
Wewe usishika simu yangu bwana, umesikia?
Manake mimi askari wako walipa shingapi?
I'm not going, I'm here to stay. You leave this house. Hauna shughuli zingine za kufanya? I am a man of few words.
Kisha nikome.
Beno.
Mimi.
Yes, you go.
Na mke mwingine Mike anaye huyu. Nenda polisi lakini.
Una kilo kitani.
Heshima unipi Mike.
Bafu sana.
We definitely appreciate your valid company. We continue our pace with the day's discussion. Time for us to focus on women and leadership, basically looking at what women are doing in their position of influence, what it took for them to climb up that career ladder, and just basically what they're still doing with that, in that regard, to continue to make an impact on the lives of women. That is what you're set to look into. And my guest is here. That is Viola Kioko, who's the Family Bank Head of Sales, Digital Financial Services. Viola, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Doreen.
Yeah, and thank you again for making time for us.
Thank you, I'm excited.
Yeah, so just before we go to your career path, what it took for you to get to this particular position. We're looking at positions that were largely predominantly male, if I should say, but we're seeing women breaking the glass ceiling to get to this position. But just to create context for this discussion, Viola, we talk about digital banking, and that has been like the vocabulary right now, even as we talk about banking. But essentially, what is this?
So digital banking is a continuum. So in the past decade or so, digital banking started with the transition from your traditional bank to you having to view your accounts on mobile and on web. It then progressed to you being able to making a financial transaction or a payment, an electronic payment on your phone. Mobile banking then picked up in the past 5 or 6 years. You have seen a lot of focus, especially for the retail customer, on mobile banking. And now we are at the point at which we're talking about building a banking suite on your phone. So you do not have to visit a bank at any time, a traditional brick and mortar bank. You open an account through your phone simply by downloading, filling in your KYC, what we call your know your customer records, your ID, KRA PIN. And once you're done, you start transacting. Yeah, so that is a transition that has taken place in the past 10 or so years.
In the past 10 or so years. And momentarily we'll look at the kind of impact this has, because then you're saying that then you don't have to really, use the traditional form of banking. So what kind of impact does this have even on the human resource? But before then, as the head of Family Bank, head of sales, digital financial services, what does your role entail?
So my role today is quite vast. So first of all, at Family Bank, we are really steadfast to getting to a tier 1 status as a bank. And so leveraging on efficiency through digital banking channels is what we are working on. So today we are focusing on digital transformation, migrating customers from your typical banking services to having or consuming those services from the digital channels that we provide. But of course that means not just at the forefront for the customer, it means a lot of change in processes. A lot of platforms need to be put in place for that to happen. So we are currently having about 87% of our transactions being run on digital, and we are working towards getting that to 95% by the end of the year.
That's quite a lot. 87% is such a significant number. But then you're saying that quite a lot of platforms are involved in this one. Which platforms are this?
So a lot of platforms include, first of all, the interaction from the customer.
Yes.
So what is that user interface that you're giving the customer? So your mobile banking has got to be able to handle the capacity. Behind the user interface or the mobile banking channel that you're giving the customer, what core banking system are you putting behind it? What sort of APIs or what sort of capabilities are you layering onto the core banking system such that this customer can be able to do a lot more than just your typical transacting or viewing your account? So there's a lot more that goes behind it. My role also entails working on strategic partnerships, because what you're seeing with the evolution of digital and the new players that are coming into the market, there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen, as opposed to looking at fintechs or these new challenger banks as competitors. It's time we started looking at them as collaborators, try and find points at which we can converge and create more value for customers.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Much as this is a significant percentage, Viola, you're saying 87%, and you're looking at the 10-year span in which you've seen this form of banking, the digital banking, and then you're saying that in the next few years or so, you're looking at the increase of this to about 95%, you say? But what kind of questions do Kenyans ask? What concerns do they have even as they get onto this platform, knowing fully well the kind of loopholes that sometimes that's a very good question, Doreen. Over the years, and I must state that this is an increasing growth for both banks and customers. In the beginning, a lot of customers would shy away from even just going to an ATM to put in their card. Or when you go there, there's a way in which you just,
so privacy, people would share their PINs.
Even up till now, they still do.
Well, a lot of education has gone through over the time. And as well as, sharing your PIN for your mobile banking. There was a lot of fraud cases that were coming through. But for both consumers and the platforms, the banks that are offering these, there's a lot of learning that has happened. So from those days, let's say the companies that are involved have worked hard to put in fraud mitigation. There's a lot of tools that are there to curb anti-money laundering, fraud detection. There's a lot of checks that happen. I'm sure now when you get into every transaction you're doing, you have to put in a PIN.
Yes.
A lot more people are coming in with a one-time PIN that verifies that it is actually you that is transacting. At the point when you're downloading or registering, there's something that we call device binding that locks your mobile number to the ID that you have registered with.
Yeah.
And a lot more background checks are happening. So checking against government services, IPRS, which is the repository for the population, that has got to be verified before you can transact. We are even going a step further to check against KRA, so that then by the time we're saying that we're allowing you to transact, all those checks and all those gates have been passed. Yeah.
So you're ensuring that you're putting all the safety nets that are required.
Yes, and it's important to mention that the regulator, CBK, is very, very passionate about this, because if your customers don't trust you, then what does that say about your brand?
Yes.
So there's a lot of checks and balances that have been put in place, and we actually are working together with the regulator to see how then we can improve more on the security for the platforms that we're offering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well said, Viola. The safety nets, as you're rightfully putting it so, but then the issue of online scammers, it has been quite the conversation there. And as you also say, CBK has been on the forward trying to ensure that they mitigate this, even with the increase of the licensing of the lenders and therein. But then how do you build confidence in Kenyans? Over time, we have seen and even covered stories of someone who would say, I had about 700,000 in my bank account. And just all of a sudden, all that money is missing. There was a time, there was actually a rife in that particular story. So then, even with all this that you're doing, perhaps even as you respond to this, you can tell us even what you're doing in your capacity, in your specific role, to ensure that then you build confidence in Kenyans with this increased uptake of...
Yeah, so a lot of capacity building is happening from where we are to make sure that whatever message we're taking to the customer is, you need to protect your digital tools. So whether it is your mobile money app, whether it is your banking app,
how do you do
whether it is your ATM, we do a lot of engagement. So we can run a roadshow, we can run SMSs to customers. I'm sure you've seen through the Kenya Bankers Association, they've run a campaign called Kachonjo. So be on the lookout, please don't be scammed. But in the event that you feel like you have been involved in such an event, we have ways that you can either block your account, block your card, call the contact center immediately, so that then we can mitigate if you feel like you have been compromised in any way. Yeah.
I really want to come to your career growth, but I want to stick around this just for a short while, especially when it comes to building confidence in Kenyans. And yes, you're saying that the safety nets are there, we agree. You're saying that you're doing a lot of capacity building and sensitization in that regard. But what other questions are Kenyans having? And does this hamper this increase of digital banking? Because, well, it could be 87 and he wants to increase, but with all these cases and stories that we've been hearing, does it hamper?
You would be surprised that has actually muted down over the period.
Really?
And the reason is, if you look at the statistics, financial inclusion was actually a key player. So in 2006, financial inclusion, the rate at which a lot of Kenyans were banked was 26%. But with the coming in of mobile money players, with the coming in of mobile loans and savings, the security measures that are put in by banks, that has risen to, I think, 84% as at 2021, and I'm sure it's much higher than that. So with the adoption of digital, which has been the key driver in financial inclusion, a lot of perceptive changes is occurring to the customers. So you're getting more aware, you're not afraid, because a lot of questions come in when you're afraid. So I'm afraid of using something, therefore I will say it is not secure.
Yes.
But the more and more you're exposed to it, the more and more you use it as a way of life, then those insecurities sort of tend to wane off. But that does not mean that a lot of work has not been put in to make sure that in the event that you feel that such an event happens and you've been scammed or conned off, then measures are there. And the bank has a robust security system, and I'm sure all banks, this is a requirement. Tools and people and infrastructure have been put in place to make sure that you even, nab customers who are transacting. I'm sure you've had cases of people who, send each other money, and eventually they were, found out to be people who are operating from a living room couch altogether. Yeah. So those are systems that have been put in place, and the government works very much hand in hand with the security departments in the banks or the financial services to make sure that this then is hastened. And these fraudsters are actually exposed early enough, and you can see that the kind of media coverage they get.
Yeah.
So really, by the time you're attempting to defraud again, you must be really, really brave.
Yeah, I hear you. But then just talk to me about the messaging and the capacity building. Because truth be told, I have a PIN. Even in my online banking, I definitely have a PIN. And it's quite difficult to access that. But just as you said, there are those who sit in their living room, and there's just, I don't even know how they do this. Is it like a class someone goes to? Because the way in which
I don't know either.
But what kind of messaging are you putting into Kenyans in a way they can be able to protect themselves with regards to this? And I'll give a classical example, Viola. Well, sometimes you're just in your house. A strange number calls you, and the way in which they tell you that you have to check your account or this and this is happening, you fall prey. And sometimes we may be vulnerable as Kenyans. So what messaging are you give Kenyans to just ensure that they can be able to protect themselves when this happens, or a strange number calls you and they're telling you all these processes, you need to do all this and all that? What is this?
I think the very first thing that institutions, financial institutions, and this is not just banks, but fintechs as well and mobile money providers have done, is the very first published the official numbers that reach out to you. Okay? So in the event that somebody calls you and tells you, I'm so-and-so from X bank, the first question you should say is, this is not the official line. Yeah.
But how many times do you even know this is the official line?
Yeah, that's the thing. So the official line is always published. So you'll find it on social media, you'll find it on SMSs, because we text you and tell you, X bank does not reach out to you unless it is through these numbers. We have a lot of checks and processes that we make sure that customers feel, safe. So by the time you're receiving such a call, please call the official contact center number and say that I have been called by so-and-so. And what happens in the back end when we receive such information, we have a portal where we report such cases, and that I'm sure goes all the way to DCI. So anybody who feels like they are scammed, please report it. Yeah, please do not fall prey to people calling you, telling you, I've sent you money by mistake, please refund. Take your time, look at your financial accounts, and do not be quick to fall prey to that.
You're saying that you report this. I mean, in your capacity, in your bank, how many cases have you reported, and how many have actually gone to the conclusiveness that we've seen these people perhaps arrested or apprehended from where you serve?
Well, this happens, it's an ongoing process. So I wouldn't, of course, divulge the numbers, but it is something that happens. And even just as, I think as late as last week, there are some people who are nabbed in Kitengela trying to do some scam through.
So it's actually still very rife?
Well, it's not very rife, but you will always find crop outs of those cases that sprout out. But the moment you have your fraud tools in place and you're able to try and monitor these transactions and see that there's something and there's an anomaly here, then an alarm is raised and the process takes its due course.
Okay, I hear you. Now, I want you to clarify something for us. There's this story that we hear oftentimes, that when these strange numbers call you and they're asking all this manner of questions, because some would even call, you're not picking, maybe it's a strange number, you're not used to picking strange numbers, they call again, you're not picking, they call again, some would even call you like 30 times, some would even shut your battery off, because they're literally just calling you on and they're not stopping. But then I've had some people say that when they keep calling you constantly, because the person who's being called will take it as a nuisance, so they would shut their phone. And I have heard that when you shut their phone, then you give them a quickie to actually do the transactions.
Oh.
Is that true?
Well, I wouldn't speak to that because I'm not a fraud expert.
Okay.
But I know if, of course, somebody is calling you off the hook, the first thing you should do is just block them. immediately, even without
So
you
don't
turning
shut,
off
just
your
be
phone.
blocking.
I mean, we all block people that we don't want to speak to. So
Okay.
block, and if you have an avenue to report, please do so. Yeah.
But just don't shut your phone. Block. All right. So Viola, you have really grown up in this career path, the banking, to get to the point that you are. You began as personal banking officer, and I want to imagine this was one of the lower cadres.
Well, it's a good job because you graduated.
But just talk to me about your career path and your career journey to get to this point that you are. We know, especially when it comes to women, this not as most women don't really get to this kind of positions. Challenges here and there, issues here and there.
Yeah.
But you've managed to get to this point. How did this all begin?
Well, I've been in banking for the past 12 years now. Began as the personal banking officer that you're talking about, and mainly that entailed running sales for the bank that I was working for at the time. A year after that, I moved into the e-channels. That back then digital was called e-channels, for the same bank as a business analyst, and I did that for about a year and a half. Then moved into marketing and research, which is what I went to school for. So I have an undergraduate in Bachelor of Commerce and Business Administration with a major in marketing. So I moved into marketing and research, did that for 4 years, grew into a growth manager. So growth means, what are you doing to drive new acquisitions and drive new, driving retention for the customers that you have. Moved into a customer acquisition manager, got promoted into a senior manager, and now here we are
as the
head of sales. What I'd say about my journey is, I think you have got to be consistent to anybody who wants, not just women, anybody who wants to grow in their career. You need to be persistent in the path that you want to grow into. And being persistent means that you have got to be in constant pursuit of new knowledge, especially in digital. In 2 years things get taken over, becomes obsolete, and you have to pick up new knowledge. So always put yourself out there, pick the difficult tasks. Often people shy away from the difficult tasks, so pick the difficult tasks. You will grow, you will challenge yourself through that, and always have people that you look up to. I usually tell people to focus on 3 types of people in their lives. Get a coach. A coach talks to you and tells you exactly what the hard truths that you don't want to hear.
No sugarcoating.
Get yourself a mentor. A mentor is more empathetic and will speak to you and guide you through the path. And get a sponsor. A sponsor is somebody who has good networks, has the social equity, and will speak about you. So they will introduce you to those rooms that you could not ideally get yourself into by yourself. But be consistent in the path that you're on. There's a lot of opportunity for both women and young people to get into digital, not just digital banking. There's a lot of space, and you can see that the regime today is very passionate about driving the digital agenda. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's what we will learn in school, through your undergraduate, but there's a lot more opportunity that you can do. There are a lot of courses online that people have taught themselves. Teach yourself basic coding, teach yourself how to, create a software, build an app, teach yourself data analytics. All those are courses that are available. And there's a lot of incubation hubs as well here in Nairobi, and I'm sure you've heard of them, that give you the opportunity to incubate any idea that you have, and then you can build and have something of your own. So there's a lot of opportunity.
There's a lot of opportunities, you say. But talk to me also about the pitfalls that you had to perhaps pass through. I mean, the 12 years you've been in the banking space. What are some of this?
Well, I wouldn't really, looking back, I wouldn't really call them pitfalls, but actually those were the hurdles that I had to go over to get to where I am today. Of course, sometimes you'll get passed over when a promotion is happening, Of course, sometimes you'll hear some corridor talk like, you're doing so much in your education yet, So there's a lot of challenges, and that's not to say
because you've done quite a lot in your education.
Well, yes. and that comes with both positives and negatives, especially in the workplace, So I wouldn't say that you will never find an environment that is open and accepting of you, but always focus on what your true north is. Identify your path. If I am going into education, scale it to the end. If I am persistent in this career that I have chosen, do all it takes to thrive in it.
Yes.
And don't get affected by the detractors, because they're there and they're many. And I'm sure even in your role today, you face a lot of that, and it gets quite
can draw you back.
It can draw you back, and especially if you're a woman, there's a lot of time sometimes that you need to take time off to go deal with your babies, but if you have a system that supports you, which is what you need to find out. Find a support system that really works for you, both at home and at work. Be the person who always constantly delivers, such that even when you need some time off, then people know she'll come back and she'll deliver on what is required. So I'd say be brave. There's opportunities, but then there's also challenges, but just
be brave.
Be brave.
What is this one instance, Viola, in the hurdles that actually drew you back and you almost quit, but then you continued keeping on to a point that now you are where you are, that you can remember?
Wow.
There's so many.
Well, not really quite many, but I really don't like to dwell on those things, because then that means I'm carrying stuff in my heart. What I've learned is...
No, but I really want you to perhaps just give one for the purpose of encouragement and to create more context for this segment, because you're looking at women in leadership, and just as you rightfully so, and you rightfully said it so, Viola, is that especially if you're a woman, and looking at the many things that you have to deal with in that regard, that you just said, sometimes you have to take time off and go home, take care of your kids. You have to take, those 3 months leave, especially if you've just given birth. There's just quite a lot that you have to deal with. And this may not come off well to some employers. Or some would say you just want to always go off. You always just want to be away. Or some employers would actually think that some roles are cut out for a specific gender, and they would give a specific gender some roles. But then perhaps in your position, that's what I want you to tell us, what was this that regardless, you just said, nonetheless, I'll keep doing it? I just want you to pick one.
Well, I think, and maybe you have talked about it, Doreen, that time when you have to take time off to go, on maternity leave. Of course, the corporate goes on, but then when you come back, you have to find your footing. Things moved, promotions were given, but because you are away, then you feel like you have to start proving yourself once again. So you will get some of those. But what I say is, look at your skills. So this may not work, but look at what you just brought forth into the world. It's a child. So there's always a trade-off. Sometimes you can't have everything, but just focus on what is really keeping you grounded at the time. If your focus is making a home and raising children, then focus on that. If your focus is, now my kids are at a good place and now let me get on with this, you go and fight it to the end. And so that means that you need to come off as, I am qualified, I am the best person for this role, there's nobody else but me. Fortunately for me, in all of the organizations that I've been in, I have not had or come across any instances where people say that this role is a male-specific or a gender-specific role. I haven't had that. I haven't had that, and I think there's quite an evolution in the organizational culture where, to me, I find that there's an equal playing field. Look at it, our CEO today is a lady. So what does that mean? It's a beacon of hope that it's actually doable. And I think there's an equal opportunity for women. We just need to find our best way to navigate in your own way. Don't become like a man, but use your poise as a lady to find your way to navigate and to make it through to the end. So,
well said. You really tried to be economical with that response. Nonetheless, have you had instances where you have had to prove yourself?
Every day.
You prove yourself
You
daily.
have to prove yourself every day.
You're as good as the last
You're as good as your last show, yes. So every day is a day to
prove
show
yourself.
up. And Just
because you're good enough does not mean that that's it.
I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, it is, you know, I need to give my employer the confidence that you hired the right
person. And they're getting value for
and
that.
you're getting value for it, and you can trust that I will deliver for you.
Yeah.
So every day you have to ask yourself, what have I done if I am employed? What have I done to make sure that I have met the objective for which I was hired for? Have I gone over and beyond? So every day you have to
prove yourself.
Yes.
I like that.
You have to
every
put
day
yourself
you have
in the
to
best.
prove yourself.
Yes.
Leave alone gender cards. And I keep
Yeah.
saying oftentimes in this segment that if you're good enough, Viola, you are just good enough.
Yes.
Gender issues aside.
No, there's a lot of opportunity now for women, and a lot has been done to, you know, create that gender equity, gender balance. So there's opportunity.
There's opportunities, you say. There's something that you did say which I want you to elucidate just further: positive and negativities of education. And I want to start with the negative, because you would choose to upscale further in your education from your degree level to your master's to your PhD. And whilst it would look like a good thing, which is a good thing anyway, you're becoming more educated and more knowledgeable, I should say. But to what end could this be a negative facet in one's working environment?
In the working environment, I have heard of cases where people have had to enroll into courses, especially master's courses, just away from the employer's knowledge. So you have to sort of play hide and seek with the employer when you're taking time off to go, you know, pursue your studies, sit examinations. But I think, you know, if you're really, I usually say, what precedents have you set in your workplace? If your precedents, the precedents you have set is, this is the kind of person I am, this is my time for working, and beyond that, earlier on the onset, you have to state that this is what I do after work. So I have to go for class, I have to take 2-3 days time off to go sit my exams. Then your employer will you know, support you. And we have seen even HRs coming through with days off for study leave. So there's opportunity for that. What I usually say is, don't take advantage, because some people then will say, you know, you had an important project to deliver, therefore I will not be there because I am studying. So again, going back to the balance, you have to make sure that if you're picking or throwing more balls in the air, that you have the capacity to juggle all of them without them dropping. So have you built the confidence in your employer that I can deliver at work, and now I am taking this other opportunity, which is to pursue or enrich my education, and therefore I will need 1, 2, 3. So you have to be brave enough to say that, to state that. Although I know sometimes people say, I have done my master's, I have done my PhD, I don't get promoted, we have a lot of graduates who are also not getting into the workspace, which is some of the negativities that you're talking about. But I think what I would advise people to do is, education does not necessarily mean that you will get employed. Getting employed, of course, is what we were all told to do. Get a good job when you go to
school and get a good job.
Yeah, but especially now with the 4th industrial revolution and the growth in digital, I mean, there's so much opportunity. You can build your own app, you can build your own stuff, and you can actually, Kenya is ripe to becoming the next Silicon Savannah.
Viola, I hear you. You can build your own stuff, and we'll come back to just navigate through further with all that you're saying. But now, just to probe what you're saying. You're saying that with the advent, with the 4th industrial revolution, with the advent of digital space, and we also talk about the digital economy, which is one of the key pillars of this regime, one of the 5 key pillars of this regime. But with this inception and probability of having the digital tax at 15%, does this even encourage young people? Because it wasn't there. But now it just might be there. Well, is it an encouragement with what you're saying?
Well, how would I look at it? You know, tax is tax. And we are also taxed if you're employed. So in everything that you do, if it is a taxable event, then let us all pay tax. I'm sure there's a lot of debate ongoing about that, and I wouldn't want to get into that at the moment. But, you know, when tax is due, just, you know, we have to honor the tax man.
I would have loved to get your input on this, seeing that you're someone largely in the digital scope. And maybe not really to get into it, because I mean it's still a proposal. Even as we speak, public hearings are still ongoing. They're supposed to culminate next week on Monday. This is part of what is inclusive in the finance bill. But just borrowing that, getting that education up to whatever level you're getting does not guarantee you that job, that does not guarantee you that promotion. And if the economic survey is anything to go by, we have seen an increase in the number of unemployment in this country. If my memory serves me correct, that should be around, is it 13.1 million or so, or even more than that, of youths specifically who could be in the job market who are not. And so now you're saying that the digital scope could be a good platform for them. But just roughly, just as a Kenyan, Viola, just as a Kenyan also, to what end will this impact these young people getting into this digital platform if this is going to be taking place, the tax? Will it draw them back? Are we trying to solve a problem of unemployment by creating employment, whereas trying to again, push them out? Just from your analogy, even just like, what is this? What are we solving? What problem are we getting ourselves into?
Well, I think, and like you said, it's still a bill.
Yes, and we will get to the merits of it.
Yeah, but at the onset, of course, you will receive a lot of resistance. A lot of content creators have made a lot of money through their creativity, and that is credits to them. So in the beginning, of course, you expect a lot of resistance, a lot of
push and pull, like what you're saying right now.
Yes, negative feedback coming through from that. But I think if it is well implemented or has a sort of graduation matrix, just the same way, pay as you earn has some sort of graduation. If then it is very well conceptualized and put together, then you can actually see how am I starting off, because it probably means that if you earn 1,000 bob, then 15% of that, gets taxed. So let's wait and see the implementation of it. But I am sure that it will take consideration of the content creators that are there. And you have seen that market actually going through. There's a lot going on in the content creator space. There's a lot going on in the gig economy space. And I think just to give you some statistics, in 2019, a study was done by Mercy Corp, and the number of people in the gig economy, as it is called, were about 36,000. And the annual income from them was about, I think, 186 million USD in 2019. Now, what happened between 2019 and today? COVID. People were laid off. It got difficult for people who previously didn't have jobs to get into the job market. And so what happened is a lot more creativity went into play. Can I buy a car and put it on ride-hailing apps? Can I use my wisdom to create a TikTok channel and educate people on a certain topic? Can I write? Can I do remote jobs for overseas employers? So all of that is what we call the gig economy. And today, from 36,000, that has grown to about 100,000 people who actually say that they are gig workers. And the income out of that in 2022 rose up to 356 million USD. So it is growing. There's like I said, there's opportunity. Of course, you don't expect a time where there'll be zero unemployment, but it is a continuum. There's opportunities, there's avenues that you can venture into, and get into that economy.
I hear you. Well said. But then with this upscaling high in education, you've been fortunate and blessed enough that you are in this position with your high level of education, but we don't see this coming by oftentimes. So then what is the best way for one to keep a ground, continue staying focused, much as you could be studying and even having that in mind, but then it doesn't come your way?
For me, I think it comes from my upbringing. I come from a family that believes in education and nothing but
education.
So and getting towards the the very best level of education is what even my parents say is the best gift, is the best form of inheritance we could give you. An opportunity to go to school. So education is something that I hold dear, and for me to see a lot more people getting into education. and not necessarily scaling it to the heights, but look at those kids who today are left on the streets or are left at home and do not have that opportunity to go to school. Education starts at that level. You know, it doesn't mean that education means that you then get employed. What education does is it opens up your mind to new perceptions. You start viewing the world in a different way. Your mind opens up, you start looking at new things, you start looking at things in a different way, and therefore the way that you carry yourself in life becomes then, that then is the difference. Yeah, so driving education, and for me, I'm very passionate for, it's SDG number 4, the goal of quality education. So trying to get as many people into education is what I would really encourage. And I'm working hard as well on the side to make sure that as many people have an opportunity to getting into schools. You never regret with education, and I don't think I can quantify it more or less. But what I know is eventually it does pay. It adds up.
But I like what you're saying, that education is not just a precepts for you to get a job, but it does open your mind.
It opens up your mind, yeah.
And we'll come to discuss that a bit further. We are due for a break, Viola, but even as you mull over that, I also want us to come back and talk about how you balance the two, family, work and work-life balance, how you actually continue to stay afloat in both of this, and what kind of advice you'd even have for younger women who are trying to get into this scope, and also look at what CBK has done probably, and to what end does this actually end up curbing the digital scammers as far as that, this scope in space is concerned. We look at that and so much more after this breather. We are due for that break, but we'll circle back with plenty more, so don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Manake mimi askari wako walipa shingapi?
I'm not going, I'm here to stay. You leave this house. Hauna shughuli zingine za kufanya? I am a man of few words.
Kisha nikome.
Beno.
Mimi.
Yes, you go.
Na mke mwingine Mike anaye huyu. Nenda polisi lakini.
Una kilo kitani.
Heshima unipi Mike.
Bafu sana.
Now there are just 2 teams left. The cup holders take on Eintracht Frankfurt.
What a header! Danny Olmo!
The Red Bulls against the Eagles. It's all or nothing time.
It's Soboslai again!
Kick-off on June 3rd.
Kamada!
There can only be one winner.
Colomwani, what a night for RB Leipzig!
Leipzig-Frankfurt, the DFB Cup final.
Zidanakum nitawazidishieni. Yani iwe itakavyokuwa, ikiwa sisi ni watu wenye kumshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu, Allah atatuzidishia kwa neema mbalimbali ambazo kwamba tunazijua na zile tusizojua.
Ikafikia kiwango ambacho na Aisha radhiallahu anha aliweza kumuuliza, hivi mbona wazidisha ibada kwa wingi sana wakati Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala amekujalia neema? Basi Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam alijibu kwa kuuliza, je, sipaswi kuwa mja mwenye kumshukuru Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ambaye ni Mola wangu?
That's the power of remembering Allah.
Welcome back to the program, and we definitely appreciate your valid company. Still holding court with Viola Kioko, who's the Family Bank Head of Digital. Wait, let me get that. Family Bank Head of Sales, exactly. Family Bank Head of Sales and Digital Financial Services. Viola, before you took that break, there's something that you had said which I wanted you to just explain or elucidate further. This was opening your mind, because oftentimes, especially as young people, you always think that now because I have a degree, because I have a master's, and I've even gone to the extent of getting a PhD at 30, whatever. Now, people are really getting education very young. Then we keep thinking, it warrants a promotion for me. It warrants me to get a job. But you said something very important, that education is not just a prerequisite for you getting that job, but is for you opening your mind, getting that knowledge. Why don't we understand that?
That's a very difficult question to ask, Doreen, and thanks for that. So opening your mind means that it has got to show in the way that you do your job. For example, if you're employed and you've talked about having a certain degree or a certain certificate, and that warranting you for a promotion, I wouldn't say that it directly should warrant, unless the role actually stipulates that for you to get here, then you must need a certain minimum qualification. But I wouldn't say that it's a direct ticket for you to actually getting promoted. What I believe and how I would look at it in relation to opening up your mind is, I have this certificate, fine, I've gone to school and I've done very well, I've presented my certificate, but how am I applying what I learned? How am I applying what I have gone to school to read into the way that I am running my job today? That has got to show, and the difference has got to be seen.
Yes.
So if I have my papers, then the way that I conduct my business within the office has got to depict that. So don't just wait for, because I have a certificate, then therefore it needs to show. And people will say, actually now she thinks different. She looks at things differently. Your way of thinking is a bit more different from the norm. And that is what every employer is looking for. So you will get promoted if you show how you're applying what you have gone to school to read.
And Viola, that was important for me to ask, because you're living at a time where there's a lot of entitlement. I mean, our generation...
I was avoiding that word.
No, but it's truth be told, okay, let me not get into that. Let me not get into that. But also just talk to me also how you are balancing this too, because sometimes it could come off as a daunting task and a difficult task to do. So then that's why we would see good number of women either drawing back. It's either they are doing family, or they are doing career, or it's career and then they're doing family, or if they're doing family they can't function well in their jobs. It's either or. But you are doing both. How have you managed to actually do all this, and how are you encouraging women to continue upscaling further and still maintain both?
I think for me, I'm advantaged because I have a very good support system, not just from the family that I come from, but also the family that I have. So my husband and everybody around me really supports that. And what that means is, we're not just supporting you, hey, yay, go to school, but we're also giving you the opportunity. Do you need help with school fees? Do you need time, which is the most important commodity for a working mom? Do I get the time during the weekend? Do I get time early in the morning? Do I get time in the evening? And do I have somebody else who will step in for me when I am not there? So it has got to be very deliberate. I must say it's quite a task, but if you're in it to the end, then you have to make time. There's a certain concept that I like, and I think even Elon Musk uses. It's called time boxing. Time boxing means that between this time and this time I am doing this, and you do nothing but focus on that. Between this time and this time. So time boxing really helps. If I know that I need to leave the office at 5 and be at a certain place by 6, then don't waste time. There's a lot of time that is wasted, just walking around, roaming around, talking,
greeting people everywhere.
There's a lot of time in a day that we actually waste. So if we get home and say, my time with the kids is between this time to this time, then does that allow me some 30 minutes or 1 hour? Of course, it won't happen every day, but you have to keep consistent. You have to put in the discipline. Yes, there's some days and there's some good days, there's some not so good days, but find the time for it. And if you put it as a goal and say that by the end of this year, I must do 1, 2, 3, then every day you must have some deliberate effort towards achieving your goal, because what is it? It's going to remain as a title on your page and say, I wanted to do this by this. But for everything, and not just education, for every other goal that you you set yourself out for, you must put in effort. And that small incremental, I don't know if you've read The Atomic Habits.
I have.
That book trended, I think, in last year, 2021, 2022.
Around 2020.
Yeah, it was the book.
2020. It was the book to read. The likes of outliers and 48 laws of power.
Look at you. So Atomic Habits really breaks down that, and it shows you how small efforts, incrementally, then culminate into something.
And sometimes you don't
bigger.
see it as such.
You don't see it, but when you look back and say, actually, I did that. I was able to do this.
And it's true, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, you're speaking and I'm thinking, and I'm like, it's actually true.
Introspection. Yes. So
it is true.
So little efforts. You may not see it, but read a chapter, read an article by somebody else if it is school. If I am looking for, property to buy, have I done my research today? Have I spoken to so-and-so? That, it still adds up. It's part of the job that you have to do to arrive at your goal. Arriving at your goal doesn't mean that if my goal was to buy a car, then here is the money, then here is the car. No. Have I figured out how much I want to save for? Have I figured out where I want to buy from? Have I done research on the type of car? Have I done? Those are the small steps that you get to your journey, and that applies across every facet in life.
Now, before we move to the aspect of digital, of savings and the digital banking, especially for youth, now again, also taking cognizance of the fact that this regime is so big on savings, but then also that on that support bit, because mom is here, your mom is here. You gotta give it for parents, I'm telling you. So when you talk about support, I just want to know, is this one of the key ingredients to balancing it out?
I would say for me, yes.
From your experience?
From my experience, support you've got to have people cheering you on. And at the same time, you've got to have people telling you you're deviating. So, and those people can be family. If you're lucky to have family that, is standing behind you and rooting for you, then good for you. But you can also have a lot of support systems around you. With the people that you interact with, the people that you choose to call friends, the people that you work with, and they can guide you and tell you, okay, now here you're doing too much, and here you're on the right track. So build yourself around that support system. And it is important to not just get a support system of people who are always just telling you what you want to hear.
Cheering you
Don't get a mirror, you will see what you want to see in a mirror, but get people who are honest and brutal with you and tell you, if you want to get here, then there's no shortcut. You've got to do 1, 2, 3, or here I think you've done a bit, too much. Here you're off.
Someone that tells you the truth, and the truth as is. Lastly, on that aspect, Viola, the question of mentorship with the young people, for instance, and you really did quite mention it, because you talked about mentorship, you talked about coaches, you talked about sponsors. How significant is this for young people to understand, borrowing from your experience and your career journey, that is not just about what you've amassed in terms of your papers and even experience as a person, or there's something extra that you need? Who is a mentor, who is a coach, and also a sponsor?
Okay, so getting the papers is in the end. Then you have to put yourself out there. Putting yourself out there means many different things. It means that if I want to get promoted, for example, from being, a teller into a branch manager, it won't happen unless, number one, have I stated my interest? So whom have I told? Have I told the current branch manager that, you know what, I'd like to get into what you're doing? And so if you approach such a person, and I'm sorry, I'm biased, I'm using the banking as an example, if you approach such a person, I am sure nobody will ever shut you out. That person will tell you, then these are the things that you need to do to get to where I am. But that person, if they're really, really honest with you, they will also tell you because you come to work late, or because you do 1 to 3, because you're careless with the way you handle money today, those are the deterrents that will make you not get to where you are. But what is important to note is that people often don't like hearing the truth, and especially if the truth comes with a bit of brutality, you know, honest truth. People don't want to hear that. So you'll get out of there saying, this person does not want me to grow, or this person sent me away because they told me 1 to 3. You choose what you want to hear, yeah? But if you really, really are keen on that growth and you listen to what that person tells you, and I'm using that case because, you know, a branch manager is the senior most person in a branch. If you really listen to them, then out of that you can actually get the 3. You can get that person to coach you, and coaching you means telling you exactly what you need to do to get there. You can get that person to mentor you, and they will tell you every day, so what are you doing? They will empathize with you. Yeah, how can I incrementally help you with your life? And you will also get a sponsor, because what happens is, if there's openings for such roles, then this is the person who will say, actually I have a person around me who I think can be groomed into such roles. So opportunity is there. You just have to first identify where it is that you want to get into, and identify the right people who are on that path already. But being fully aware that we are not all at 100%. That this is a person who looks like they've figured out, and I want to emulate them. Then approach that person. I don't think I've heard of anybody who has shut out, especially in leadership. Nobody has come to any leader and has not received some form of advice for their lives. And for me, even with the people that I look after, I have a team of about 100 people. I do that deliberately.
Whom you mentor?
And mentorship doesn't mean that you have actually set out a calendar and said, now this is mentorship. No, it is every conversation that you have. Hi, how is your job today? How are your numbers looking like? Then how can I help you? So just trying to leave a nugget to try and make somebody better than you've interacted with them before. So leaving them at a better place than before the interaction started. That is mentorship. It may not add up today, but later on you look back and say, actually that person told me something very
and
important.
I can fully attest, it's the little things. Let me tell you, it is the kidogo up until you realize. Yes, and then you realize 5 years later, wait a minute, what they said in 2018 is now making sense in 2023. So that was also important to understand. Now, as we get to the tail end of this conversation, Viola, now the aspect of what CBK has done, they just did that in March, I believe it was the 23rd of March, where they licensed 10 other digital platforms. And this was just part to deal with the whole aspect that you've been seeing on fraud, or the scammers, and create more confidence in this sector, the digital area. To what end will it curb? Because now we're talking about, is it 32 licensed? Is licensing enough? Does it build more confidence on Kenyans when it comes to the digital banking and digital lending? Does it?
Yeah. So I think there was a lot of conversation before, the regulation came to be. And this is, just for context, this is the Digital Credit Providers regulation. And so far we have seen CBK publish the list of the 32. What this means is there was an outcry before from the masses who said, these people are scamming us. There was a lot of conversation. These people are, operating as Shylocks. And we saw people saying, oh, they've reached out to my people on my phone book, they've reached out to my relatives. So there was a lot of that. But what the regulator has done is actually their role. So the regulator is supposed to come in and put in frameworks and put in a policy within which they can operate. And so security as well is one of those things that is in there. So there are 32 of them today, and there's a lot more. So they actually said that there was a list of about 400 of them that had applied. So there's time. But for me, the greatest win is that actually shows that regulation brings some form of discipline. So good lenders will be there, and I'm happy because they are actually using innovation to come into the market, and you're seeing a lot of players coming in, which is part of the digital growth that we were actually talking about earlier. So that means that if you're under that framework, then there's always checks and balances that are put in place. There's frameworks to make sure that you're operating within the governing body that you're under. So that's a plus.
That's a
win.
plus.
Yes.
But 32 out of 400, good enough?
No, it's coming.
It's coming momentarily,
coming.
yeah?
Yeah, that's what they said.
All right,
yeah.
I hear you.
They said it's coming. A lot more are coming.
A lot more are coming.
Yeah, if
well
you
said.
pass the regulation, then you get license.
You get license. Well said. Now, with this digital banking, does it in any way lock out human resource? Because you did say earlier that now 87%, significant number, looking at increasing that to 95%. So then I'm thinking about the human resource in the banking halls. Will there be need for them? To what end? And what does it speak about employment in that regard, if everything can be found on your phone? Yes.
So the way I look at it from a financial services aspect is, I wouldn't cut and say that because there's digital, therefore we don't need traditional banking.
Yeah.
I believe there's a place that each of these play in, and there's a role for each. So I would address it through the way that you segment your customers as a corporate, for example. There are those customers who are, very high, sophisticated type of customers that you're dealing with, and even the type of transactions that they're carrying out are quite large. If I'm coming in to do an international money transfer, or I'm coming in to do apply for a mortgage, or negotiate for a loan, there's a place for that, and that is why relationship management handled at the branches is important for that. And there are some transactions that are yet to be digitized, so there's still a place for that. But there's also a big place for those who, the segment that you will target with your digital channels. So if it is somebody coming in to make a deposit of 10,000, then, from an efficiency perspective, if you look at it, you would rather that person use other rails to introduce the funds into the account, rather than put out a human resource to serve that type of customer. So I wouldn't say that it compromises the type of the job market as is today. What I'd say is it actually drives efficiency, and it's clearer for us to see that this type of segment should be served through digital channels to drive efficiency, like I've talked about. And then this particular type of segment is best served for by the branches, and this type of transactions then are better done at the branch, of course, because you have to do your KYC verification, you have to do all of that, and that is done at the branches. So there's a place to play, but for me, what I would encourage people is, move with the times, So don't sit and wait for redundancy. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but in the event you're seeing your job is getting overtaken by events, you have to, again, I talked about constant pursuit of skilling yourself. So skill yourself in the next role. How do I become a product manager for the digital apps that you're giving? How do I become a product owner? How do I drive growth rather than your typical on-ground sales today, which is what happens at the branches? How then do I drive growth through digital channels? So have you skilled yourself? Have you retooled yourself to fitting the next type of jobs?
And you see, that was important for me to ask, because even as you're explaining it, that I am thinking about how over time we are looking at some jobs which in some years to come, like 10, 20 or even 30, the way you're saying, unless you're reskilling yourself, retooling yourself, reinventing yourself, then really working in that desk may not be formidable as is because of this migration. So also trying to understand the way you're saying that even as we speak right now, it's not that the digital space is coming to replace the human resource, but they really do work hand in hand, depending on the segment and the person that you're serving. I think that was also important to understand. Now, even as we still stick on that aspect of digitization, this is one of the key pillars of this regime. Digital economy is one of the 5 key pillars. And over time, we have seen the ICT cabinet secretary, almost every place he goes to, he has to at least launch a hotspot. And he did talk about the 100,000 digital kilometers superhighway. So as someone in the digital space in that regard, when it comes to banking, how are you incorporating that with this pillar, this one of the key pillars of this regime, to see how best Kenyans can be served?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question, and I'm really happy that you asked.
Yes.
So, as you know, the regime is quite passionate on digital economy, on driving the digital economy, and immediately they took over. There was a project to launch the famous Hustler Fund.
Yes.
And as you're aware, Family Bank was one of the banks that was selected to participate in this.
Okay.
So our bank is really driven towards achieving this. Digital financial inclusion is one of our greatest pillars, and we are participating in it. So just to give you some statistics, since we started disbursements from the bank alone, there are other banks that are participating, but just from Family Bank alone, in 90 days we've been able to issue out loans worth 2 billion. So that means every day about 30,000 customers get access to these funds, and so that really goes to show that we are in full support of this government agenda, and I'm sure they're rolling out new phases on this, and we're still participating in that.
Yes.
So working hand in hand with the regime is something that really helps with reaching out to the masses, and for us focusing on driving that through financial services is what we are keen on growing at the moment. So what Hustler Fund does is it doesn't just help you with getting access to the loan, but 90 out of what you borrow, 100 shillings, 5 shillings of what you borrow goes into a savings pot. So it's not just about lending, but it has an aspect of saving, which is something that the government is also very passionate about. So driving that savings culture. So we're seeing that happening, and people have embraced it. People borrow in the morning, pay in the evening, and they borrow again. So it's a good thing. It's a plus. Yeah.
So you're really working hand in hand to ensure that, to see how that is actually incorporated, and see how Kenyans can be able to benefit with all this. As we conclude, Viola, what is this that you'd want, most importantly, young women to know when it comes to climbing up the ladder with regards to leadership?
Okay. I think for me, and this is not just specific to women, but to everybody, tool yourself according to the time that is there. So, perhaps that degree that you did 10, 15 years ago is not what is going to sail you through. Look at what other skills are there, and there's a lot of skills online that you can be able to do. Some are even free. There's a lot of YouTube channels that are educating people on this. So tool and retool yourself, reskill yourself, so that you are ahead of the curve as it goes. And for women specifically, time box. Find time to do exactly. It can be done. It is achievable. So just find time, allocate time, find a good support system, but balance it out. Well said. And it's a good place to end this discussion. Thank you so much.
Viola, thank you so much. Highly appreciate your time and your valuable inputs.
Thank you so much for having me, Doreen.
Thank you again. That has been Viola Kioko, the Family Bank Head of Sales, Digital Financial Services, basically just looking at women in leadership and what it took and what it takes for them to get to these positions, the kind of hurdles they have had to go through, and what this means for you, especially as a woman out there trying to climb up the same ladder in whatever career, whatever dispensation that you're in. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya. Right now, we sit ground for Senate. Coming in next.
Star 963 hash.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
To get Hail Mary, dial star 811 star 963 hash star 811 star 963 hash.
Nairobi.